There it is.
Hello.
Hi.
We are live.
We are here.
And it's right now, it's just the two of us, Dana and I.
I love when you serenade me.
Just the two of us. Or how about oh, that's not good.
Love is in the air. Everywhere I look around.
Love is in the air.
I feel it. I hear it. I sense it.
Nick is experiencing love this morning for his technology.
That just sounds so attractive.
He's restarting everything because his we're not hearing him on his microphone, his professional Heil PR40 mic. So we'll wait for him to come back and restart and all that kind of stuff. Steph will be on the show today, but not until later on. So right now it's a little after 12 o'clock Eastern. Sorry for my crunching there. 12 o'clock Eastern. She's going to try to join us sometime after 3 o'clock. So what we're going to do, the plan is, that is if we can get Nick all sorted out, we're going to start the show and we'll do the show news and feedback up to like the plain tales. And then after we get plain tales, hello, Nick. Still sounds like your internal microphone.
Does to me too. You're coming through my loudspeaker. What the hell are you doing coming through my loudspeaker?
So you have the settings correct on the HOA settings?
Yeah, I've already checked that a couple of times. Oh, it isn't now. Now it's switched. Oh, it's not seeing the. Why aren't you seeing the H5? Oh, fuck it. I love this.
Family show.
Live family show.
Family show.
Family show live.
Yeah, remember we are on
family show, ladies and gentlemen.
The air.
Family show.
Sorry, everybody.
Not a problem. There you go.
Oops.
All right, how now? Can you hear me at all?
We can hear you, but it's your internal mic.
Well, why the hell doesn't Hangout see my H5? Oh, it should. It says H5 now. Let's save that. That any better?
No.
Brilliant.
That's not funny.
All right. Computer input H5, output H5, sound effects H5.
How about your on your MacBook? Have you looked at the sound preferences?
Yeah, that's where it just was.
Okay, and your HOA window preferences are set properly as well.
Yep. HD camera, yeah. Default H5. It's coming and it's selected.
There you go.
H5
there you go.
Well, now we got it. It is now picking up from your H5.
Well, it was there. It was. I didn't change the settings. All I did was open it and close it again.
Now, sometimes that's what it takes. Just turn it off, turn it on.
All right.
Sounds like
my audio level.
Excellent. Maybe bump it up a little bit.
Okay. The only odd thing is that I just for fun, because I seem to remember we had a problem a while back. I've set the H5 interface to stereo rather than multi-channel. So even though I'm using a mono input, I've selected stereo. So according to this, it's just working on the left input. Is that making any difference to the audio quality?
No, I'm hearing you on both channels.
Okay. Do you mind if I just try and change it back to
go ahead.
Okay.
Sure. Why not change what we actually have working for something that might not? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you're screwing around with it again.
Because that's what we do.
That's right.
That's what we pilots do. We're not satisfied when it's working correctly. We want to make it even better.
Well, it's not working the way it should. That's the thing.
That is true. Now I'm using my H5 with the multi-track audio interface.
Well, that's what it should work, because I don't really want. Now, here I am, back on multi-track now. How's that?
Nope. Now you're going to have to turn it off and turn it back on in the HOA because it's not
okay,
coming
let
through
me
the
try
HOA.
that. I've just turned the camera off. That's better. Right. It says H5.
But select something else and then select H5 again.
Microphone. Save. This should sound horrible.
Yeah, I'm not hearing your...
You're not hearing the built-in microphone now?
I am hearing the built-in mic.
Okay, right. Now I'm changing it back to H5.
Okay. Love is in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, disconnected. Well, I'll be. Guess I need to redo that.
You know what I forgot to mention in Boston baked beans?
What
What
did you
we're really
forget to
known
mention?
for? Chowder and seafood.
Well, it has nothing to do with Boston baked beans.
That's true. You're
Lobster and chowder.
lobster, chowder, seafood. Seafood and eat it is what I like to do, at least.
That's my diet. Yep.
Yep, seafood and eat it. Somebody thought you were eating celery, but it's actually water crackers.
Yeah. If I had celery, I would be putting the peanut butter on celery.
Well,
But I don't have any.
if I had food in the room, I'd be eating it, but I didn't bother.
Well, you had
Forget to wait for
breakfast.
dinner.
I didn't have breakfast.
Captain L, I'm a very big fan of chowder. Which type of chowder, Captain L? New York?
Okay.
Boston?
Or Manhattan.
Oh, yeah, Manhattan, excuse me. Red or white chowder?
Still hearing you on the internal mic.
I've reselected.
Oh,
there we go.
Yep.
I've reselected H5 on the
Okay.
on Hangout, but I'm back to stereo, single channel stereo. Very odd. Don't understand. You have to explain that to me one day, Jeff.
Well, I don't know if I know how to explain it because I can select either stereo or multi-track and it works on both.
Yeah, every time I select multi-track on mine, it obviously it doesn't seem to like it.
Huh. That's odd.
All right. Anyway, I'm here. I won't change it again.
Excellent.
And tabulous.
So everybody understand what we're going to do here. We're going to do kind of the basically first half, maybe a little bit more of the first couple hours of the show. And then after that, we'll break and chat and hang out until Steph joins us. And then if Nick, if you need to go, what time's your pickup today?
Well, the flight's a little late, but it's not that late, I think. So I should get a call at 5:45 and need to be downstairs at about 6:15.
All right. So you'll be able to hang with us most of the time too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Be nice.
All right. So we're going to just hang out all afternoon. All right. Now, why? Oh, of course. So before all this started, and while Nick was working out his problems, I should have checked something here on my computer. And when I was in the shower before the show, everything went pitch black in the house, and the power went off. The frontal gust front came by here in Atlanta, and
I'm glad you said gust
power
front
out.
when you said frontal.
Yes, full frontal gust.
You've been gusting too much, have you, Jeff?
Yeah,
Could you say the wind was blowing pretty hard?
I could say that.
Mm.
The
Knocked out
wind
the
was
power.
blowing very hard. Hello. There we go. I'm picking up the mic. Now we go over here to this one. And
By the way, is my audio okay? Is it loud enough?
Yes,
Okay, right.
it is very good. Say something again.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper.
All right.
Easy for you to say.
And
Apparently.
it is easy for him to say. Not so much everybody else.
Yeah, no, I could never say that.
Let's
I
see.
have a hard enough time with English language and slowing my speech down and actually saying what I mean to say. Oh, you're funny. You're hilarious. That's a knee slapper. Wow. Wowza.
Let's see.
I gotta change that up a little bit.
Okay. And
Johnny, how much more coffee? No thanks.
no thanks. And
WAPG. It's
No,
the
that's a new
Empire
one.
Pilot Guy.
Where'd that one come from?
I'll talk about it in a moment. We got a big
Yeah,
surprise.
I like that. That was very good.
I'm so excited. I can hardly contain myself.
Oh, I can look at him. He's glowing. He is glowing.
Okay, you guys are ready? Let me see. Let me get this up here.
Recorders are up, and I'm ready to roll.
Oh yeah, recorders.
Oh, yeah, okay.
See,
Dana's on top of it.
Dana
I am
managed to
ready
get a checklist right.
I got the checklist right. I'm ready to roll today.
Oh, hang on a minute. Why is all of a sudden Audio Hijack not seeing my H5? Oh, God. For some
Well, sometimes you have to reselect it there as well. That's something I have to do almost every time.
You know, and what I did was the Scarlett USB wouldn't recognize mine, so I went ahead and deselected it and X'd out of the program, then had to come back into the program.
All right. Jeff, I've had to make a new session. So I've got ACC 256 kbps stereo M4A more compatible. Is that about right?
ACC 128 kbps mono.
Yeah. What about the
128.
what about the M? Is it M4A or MP4? I think it's M4A.
Stand by. I'll tell you real quick.
M4A
Under
more
advanced.
compatible.
It is M4A.
Okay. Excellent.
All right, I'm good.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll just clap because I don't think you guys have your clapboards with you. So
No.
All right. Let's start with 3, 2, 1, clap. Bum bum bum.
It's no better in New York.
No, of
What
course
do you
not.
got a good speed now though? That's excellent speed.
Excellent. Yeah. What'd you say? 40 down or something?
Yeah, I'm like 50 down and 120 up.
Nice.
Wow.
Wow, any
Wow.
dreams?
I had to churn down my I'm going to probably be Skyping quite a bit today because the internet speed here is terrible.
Yeah. I'll let you know. I mean, you can always adjust that little
I already
bandwidth
did.
selector thing.
I
Okay.
already did. Oh, I have to take this phone call. I'll be right
Okay.
back.
All right.
Nice beaver.
Thank you. I just had it stuffed.
That's right. It's an airplane. I have that
Yeah.
poster behind me.
Yeah,
No.
it's excellent.
And just so that you all don't forget it.
Do you know who I am? I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal. People know me. I'm very important. I have many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells of rich mahogany.
Excellent. I like a mahogany apartment. It's very nice.
I like mahogany too.
You like a bit of wood. Excellent. I need to find.
Thank
the
you, Nev.
chapter.
Yeah, throwing out those compliments as usual. It's like watching an operation where it's all three surgeons' first time. Shut up. Hello, Armando. We heard that you're going to be the, or maybe was he just on the show, or is he coming on the next one coming up on the PTUK? I heard that you're going to be a celebrity, the guest celebrity host. See, Armando
back.
knows this film. Okay, excellent.
Sorry about that. I have a couple phone calls I'm going to have to take today, but other than that,
Yeah, no problem.
I'm free.
Whatever. You know, we're flexible here at the APG.
Hey,
No, we're
listen,
not.
I appreciate
We're
that.
not professional at all. We pride ourselves
That's
on that.
very true. If you look at me, you know I'm not professional. Listen to me, you definitely know I'm not professional.
You know, like as we say, we're upping our standards. Up yours. That's our advice for everyone. Okay, let me come over here, make sure that I have the Evernote page up. You guys don't need Evernote up because you're probably following on the show notes.
Yeah, that's correct.
Now,
Although
Nick, did you notice what I did for you?
Yes, A, B, C, D, E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're very good.
It's awesome.
I'm hoping it wasn't just for me. I'm hoping other people will benefit from this.
Just for you.
Change.
Nobody else
Oh, really?
had any problem with it.
Oh, really?
No, we were happy.
Really?
Happy to.
Now, Jeff, don't be mad with me now. I did something.
What'd you do?
Speaking of Evernote.
Oh, you changed.
I tired of getting told that I don't have enough space, so I went ahead and paid for it.
Oh, okay.
So you'll be getting everything through Evernote now.
Oh, okay. And
I paid for a year.
Oh, sweet. Okay, so you had the premium version. Very nice.
I got the premium. So I did that nice Boston Bean recording. I'm sitting there. I had my phone. I have the whole setup. Plug my microphone right into my phone. GarageBand. Went to send it. It said, "Yeah, well, you don't have enough space in Evernote." So I then would try to send it to Dropbox, and it wouldn't allow me to do that. I said, "You want to know what? Blank this," and I just went ahead and paid for the Evernote.
All right. I don't know why
good now.
Dropbox wouldn't let you do it. Oh, by the way, we do have a folder in Evernote for crew logs.
We do. Let me look at that.
So you don't have to put. I mean, it doesn't matter as long as you.
There it is. Yes, it is.
As long as you let me know, as you did in the text or the messaging, that you put one in there. That's good enough.
Excellent.
I'll different places. RAF Form 414, Volume 2. Or would you say 414?
Yeah, 414 is a kind of an American call sign thing in my experience, but I don't really care.
414 then?
Yeah,
the way you would say?
Yep.
Okay, then I'll make sure I say it the other way.
I don't think we ever really referred to it as Form 414. It was always called the logbook, but
all right. I think we are called ours as 781, if I remember correctly. I don't know if it's probably not the same nomenclature anymore. I think it was. Is that right? 781. Armando, in the chat room, is the logbook still referred to as the 781, or do I have the numbers wrong? Probably have the numbers wrong. Okay. Form 404.
Yeah, very good.
Nev's full of himself today.
He's full of it. He always is.
Full of it. Yes, he is. Okay. Let me check the bandwidth or my CPU here. Why is this thing making so much noise? I don't know.
I finally figured out
is the flight record. Okay, excellent.
Ever since I had started using the Focusrite, I had always had this buzz, electrical buzz, like zzz. So like if I touched a computer, I touched Focusrite, it'd go away. Well, finally, I figured out that if I plug in my Bose earpieces into the electric power that plugs into the computer, then I got rid of that buzz. It's so much nicer.
It's called a 60 hertz ground loop, and you should always plug in all of your devices to the same outlet.
Yeah, well, guess what?
That will help prevent it. Yeah, there you go.
I'm happy.
Happy
if you know it. Should clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. I'm not going to sing anymore because I can't. I don't want to scare all of us.
Okay, let's see. Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show. Okay. All right. Are we all ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You bet.
Okay.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Now, don't talk when I'm playing the stuff.
It's loud.
It's not. It's fine where I am.
Okay. Turn your volume down.
I'll turn my volume down.
Okay, now shh, quiet on the set.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 313.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 1A in the APG headquarters building in Roswell, Georgia.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Reaching by and it's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
All right, in today's episode, hop. Yeah, 3 surgeons, Neff. Damn it. I love the video, Nick. That's not distracting whatsoever. What is it that we're looking at there?
Can you hear me?
No, you
Barely.
got your. There we go. Now your mic, your mute switch is not in the right position.
How about now?
There we
Yes.
go. That sounds a lot better.
It's the Beachbody TV channel, you know.
Oh, I thought that was something you build up on YouTube from like the 60s.
No. I just, you have the Weather Channel. I thought this was, more me.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's you.
that's definitely me.
Okay, what's the best way for me to turn this volume down while I'm playing this?
Yeah, because you were getting muffled out.
Yeah, let me make sure I have the studio setting here on this.
By the way, what was that awful racket you played at the beginning of the show?
It's our new theme song, sir,
What?
and I hope that you don't like it. All right. Okay, is my sound sounding any different?
A little quieter.
A little
Okay,
quieter.
good. That's
Nicer.
probably the way it's supposed to sound. And how's the music sound?
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline.
Still pretty loud to me.
Sounds fine in New York, but I'm going deaf anyway.
Let me turn it down a little bit.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
There we go. Is that better?
Yeah.
It's better. Now
Sounds
you're
good
a
to
little
me.
softer, though.
That's what she said.
Family show. Let's say family show.
All right. All right, here we go. Airline, no? Did I say Airline Pilot Guy? Yeah. Airline Pilot Guy, episode 313.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 1A in the APG headquarters building in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show was recorded on the 1st of March, 2018.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Reaching by and it's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, an ATR-72 crash in Iran. An update on the pedestrian on the runway at LAX. More news, your feedback, and this week's plane tale. RAF, Form 414, Volume 2. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seatbacks in their upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 313 is ready for pushback. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. I'm Captain Jeff, a captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier. And joining me today from
1,000.
New York City, his palatial hotel room, overlooking, I'm sure, Central Park. He is a professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, current captain for an international airline based in London, Captain Nick.
Well, hi there, Jeff. I'm just trying to stand up to look out my window to see what is actually outside. I think it's the CVS, which isn't quite the same as Central Park.
It's the CVS in Central Park.
Great to be back on the show. Thank you very much.
I was just using my imagination.
Yeah. Well, actually, if you just said a brick wall, that probably would have been closer. Yeah,
I know.
Sitting in the
exciting.
New Yorker, the Wyndham New Yorker, and
Okay.
Studio 7 something or other. Actually, I hate to say the number because it's reminiscent of a Boeing, so I'm not going to.
Okay. Okay. Well, while we think about that a little bit more, let's introduce our next host.
Wow.
Last but certainly not least, from his... Oh, and he's not in the stately mansion in Smyrna. He's in the Dulles, Washington area. Barbecue, beans master, bourbon connoisseur, motorcycle riding pilot for a major U.S. legacy carrier. Soon to be Captain Dana.
Well, hello, everybody. It's great to be back. Another fantastic episode that we have coming up ahead of us. And yes, it's not such a beautiful day in the Washington area. A little overcast. I guess that weather moved up from the Atlanta area. So getting to sit back and enjoy an awesome day here on the APG. So great to be here.
All right, very good. So I'm going to turn up. I hear from the folks in the chat room that my volume is too low, so I'm turning up the gain on my mic. How's that? Does that sound a little bit better?
Yeah, sounds a little better. You're still not as clear as you usually are.
Okay, well, let's do this then. I can switch back from the studio mode to voice mode. And then the music won't sound as good, but that's okay. It's not a music show. All right. And we'll go to voice. Save. Okay, now. Should sound better? Or give it a chance?
Yeah, it sounds better.
Timbre has changed slightly.
The timber.
And the volume was increased slightly.
Okay, very good.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Well, as we always like to, or as I like to say, it'll all be fixed in post.
If you have a chance.
Yeah. I'm not going to get into it. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. And so that was a new theme song that I had, commissioned by a very famous podcast jingles guy. I've been listening to a man named Adam Curry. He was, a lot of people call Adam the podfather of podcasting. And he was one of the very first, and I'm talking like one of the first 2 or 3 guys that started this whole thing we call podcasting back in 2004, I believe. And early on his show, the Daily Source Code, a man, a great guy, Jeff Smith, Geoff Smith, was doing a lot of his jingles and his sound clips and that kind of thing, and got a chance to meet Jeff in the early days back in 2005, 2006 in California at the Podcast and New Media Expo. And he's just, as I said, a great guy, and I've always loved his music and his jingles, and finally had an opportunity to meet up with Jeff in Nashville a couple of weeks ago, well, about 3 or 4 weeks ago now. And I said, you know what? I think it's time now for a new jingle for the Airline Pilot Guy Show. So that is what he did for us. He's done a couple other things as well that we'll be playing in this show. And one of them he just quickly did for me. He says, is there anything else I can do? And I said, well, you know what I'd love to have something like this.
Ooh, Jeff's pet peeve.
Because I have a lot of pet peeves. It's amazing how quickly he can know that. You want to do that one again?
Yeah.
Ooh, Jeff's pet peeve.
Jeff's set piece.
No. Here, let's
Pet
listen
peeve.
closely.
Ooh, Jeff's pet peeve.
Pet peeve.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. I think you need to put something on the screen. I need closed captions.
Anyway, he did a coffee fund, new Java Jive for us as well. So we'll be playing that
Excellent.
coming up. So
Looking forward to that.
yeah. Anyway, so thanks, Jeff Smith, if you're listening. Probably not. Thank you for doing all that great work for us. And again, check out Adam. Well, Adam Curry's no longer doing the daily source code. He hasn't done that in a while. But his current show now is called No Agenda, and he does that with John C. Dvorak. And you'll hear occasionally, here and there, some stuff that Jeff Smith did for his show as well, or their show. Anyway, moving on. How is everybody doing today?
Yeah,
Great.
pretty good.
Yeah, fantastic.
So both of you are not at home. Captain Nick, let's start with you. You're in the New York City area. Has the snow hit New York yet? I know it's on the way.
Is it really? I hope not, because currently it's quite warm and pleasant. And I've just come out of a very snowy UK and might be struggling to get back because it's still pretty bad over there. So we had a bit of a nightmare getting out. A big delay on the ground getting de-iced. And it wasn't really that bad, but the worst weather came, well, I guess this morning in the UK, because they preemptively cancelled a number of flights, which included my return flight. So I don't have an airplane arriving to fly home in. So they're passengering me home on one of the flights that is coming out. But of course, I suspect since they've reduced the number of flights, they're all going to be absolutely rammed. So I'm not expecting a comfortable flight home.
We were talking about this before the show started, that I believe with Acme, if you were deadheading home positive space on that kind of a length segment, they would give us a business class seat. Isn't that correct, Dana?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I think
We
that's
would
in our
absolutely
contract.
be in business.
Yeah, it's too bad that you're not going. Well, there's a chance you will be, right? Or
well, there's space available to upper, but because you're not traveling to a duty and there's no requirement for you to be rested, then they can put you in economy.
Well, let's all hope for you that you
nice.
get.
But wouldn't be the
upper
first
class.
time I've flown. I've flown all the way to Hong Kong, either on jump seats in economy. So, I'm well familiar with the discomfort of the back of the airplane.
Especially, you're not a short man like I am. You're 6 foot something or other.
Yeah, 6'3". Yeah, I do tend to struggle a wee bit in the small seats, but needs must. I need to get home.
Yeah,
well, at least you won't be hungry because you can munch on your knee caps.
Yeah, good point.
That's a picture I don't really want to think about. Well, you'll note that Captain Dr. Steph is not with us at this moment, but she will be joining us later in the show. So stand by for that. If there's any reason at all for you to stay there throughout the show, it's to wait for Dr. Steph to join us. So let's see. Dana, how have you been doing?
Well, pretty much a very boring life this past week, so nothing really to report on. Just had a fantastic 3-day trip. One leg out last night, 30 hours here in Washington Dulles and doing the podcast. Otherwise, I may have tweeted out a meetup, especially a 30-hour layover, but no one had the show today. I decided not to do that. And tomorrow, 3 very easy legs, one back to Atlanta, then down to Palm Beach and back and done. And then I'm going to be an official captain long before an airline captain this weekend because I take delivery of the new APG party barge.
Oh, right.
Oh, wow.
So I'm being a boat captain.
Does that make you a bosun or a master mariner or something or other?
I'm a master
something.
marinator. Like I can marinate some good pickles and some.
I'm glad you went
olives
that
and-
direction with that.
Yes,
likewise.
yes, and like mushrooms and so forth. But no, I did take in, because I am always on the safe side in everything that I do. There is no requirement in the state of Georgia to have a boat license. You just have to have a driver's license, and if you're under the age of 21, I believe it is, you have had to have had some type of boat certification course, a safety course. So I opted to go ahead and take that course so I could be familiar with the proper operational rules and what I should do in certain circumstances and what I need to have on the boat for safety. So I know it's not a show about boating, but I'm kind of looking forward to this new adventure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I think a lot of us that are aviation buffs also maybe, secretly we don't tell anybody, but we're kind of boating enthusiasts as well, or at least have an interest in it. I do. But that reminds me, we have some feedback later in the show, kind of complaining about that. Too much boating going on in the show.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Well, we're just going to have an APG meetup on a boat at Alatuna.
Okay.
Can I call you a seaman? Is that what you are? Can I call you Seaman Staines?
Well, I'm actually technically a lakeman.
A lakeman. No, I prefer seaman. Seaman Staines. That'll be.
No, that'd be seaman. SEAMAN. Like
that's exactly. Yeah,
seaman,
exactly what I meant. Yeah.
Oh boy.
So that's the proper spelling and pronunciation of that word.
Okay, with that,
what about you, Jeff?
Captain Jeff? Dana just sent me a crew log, and I just posted that late last night. So if you're part of the Coffee Fund cadre, and I'll tell you how you can be part of it if you'd like, you can enjoy Dana's latest crew log, and it's all about barbecue, Boston beans and barbecue baked beans and all kinds of.
And you're supposed to cue up the sound effect.
Oh yeah, so Boston
baked beans. Then you end up with there you go, perfect.
Yeah, and in the text of the thing I said all I know is it's the magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. All right.
Have we all got that out of our system now, guys?
I hope so.
Good.
No, probably not.
Are you jealous?
Anyway, I had a chance to. I haven't flown, I think, since the last episode. But, well, I take that back. I have flown, but not for Acme. I got a notification from Stephen last week. Well, I think I talk about it on this little teaser of a recording here. So let's play that. The sweet sounds of a Lycoming 180 horsepower engine at 7,000 feet, somewhere between Atlanta and Electric City. I'm in the co-pilot seat, just watching, just mesmerized by this whole thing. Just above the cloud layer here at 7,000 feet. And Captain Stephen Ivey is at the controls. Here, say something, Captain.
Hey, everybody. Just flying the plane right now, trying to get the altitude to work, but, autopilot doesn't always work that way.
All right. Yeah, we're heading for a very expensive hamburger at the place in, what is it called, Greenville, downtown, I think we're heading to. Stephen called me up yesterday and said, or actually texted me and said, hey, are you interested in going flying? And I went, absolutely. So here I am. So that's just a little snippet of one of two recordings that I did while I was flying in Stephen Ivey's beautiful Mooney, 1962 model, I believe. And if you are a member of the Coffee Fund cadre, you'll be able to hear the whole thing. I haven't uploaded that yet, but stay tuned. I had a great time flying general aviation with Stephen, and had a great burger at the Runway Cafe at Greenville downtown. And look forward to doing that again. That was a lot of fun, Stephen, if you're listening.
I haven't yet had a chance to fly in his lovely Mooney, even though he did promise, if you recall, to fly me to Pittsburgh in it.
Yeah,
or wings over Pittsburgh, and then reneged on the deal, which broke my heart. I don't think I've ever forgiven him for that.
I live in Atlanta too, Stephen.
Okay,
Hint,
well,
hint.
let's move on. We have a little envy going on here, or jealousy, envy, whatever. So
remember, I can do your BFR, Stephen.
Yeah, I'm sure that you'll have the opportunity because he's always out there trying to build time. So I'm sure that you'll get a chance to do that.
I buy gas. I don't give gas.
Oh, by the way, never mind. That's kind of a private thing, so I'm not going to say anything about that. Let's see. And then later that day, after we came back to Atlanta, he picked me up at PDK. We flew over to Greenville downtown in South Carolina, then back to PDK, the DeKalb Peachtree Airport, and then I got in my car and drove up to Cobb County, not too far from your neck of the woods, Dana, and had my FAA physical.
I'm not dead. He said he's not dead. Yes, he is. I'm not. He isn't. Well, he will be soon. He's very ill. I'm getting better. No, you're not. You'll be stone dead in a moment.
I'm not dead.
Nice one. But if you walk in, you're usually not dead.
Yes. I go with a gentleman named Ted Carter up in just off of what is it called? Paces Ferry, and not too far from the Galleria. And,
that's the Kaufman's old dig.
Well, no, but there is a connection there. No, he was further down over toward the restaurant called Canoe.
Yep,
right on the river. No, Ted is up farther up, closer to the when you get off at 285 and Powers Ferry. There's a Quick Trip gas station, and then just past that is where his office is, right next to.
Did he buy out Williams?
Maybe. Don't think so. He's been kind of doing his own thing. He was a previous Eastern pilot, and then an Acme pilot, and then became a doctor because I think he had some kind of a medical issue and he couldn't fly anymore. So he went ahead and got his doctor's degree or license or whatever. I think you just put something in the mail and you get something. Not sure exactly how that works.
Or go to the gumball machine, put a quarter in.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually a bit of a Russian roulette thing. You could get to be able to officiate a wedding, or you could become a doctor.
Yeah, I think he chose the doctor thing. Yeah. So anyway, a fine doctor, and got my 2 times a year physical out of the way for February. So next time is in August, and this one had the EKG, and apparently everything is pumping correctly and ticking just fine. So
yeah, but your wife would say you don't have a heart.
That is true. But as far as
but they've proven otherwise.
Physically, I have one. Let's see. Website I have here in my notes. The website performance has vastly improved thanks to whatever it is that Arash did in the background. So hopefully everybody is getting some good performance from the website if they go there to check out things. And speaking of the website,
we can go live on the.
Yeah, well, I have that next on my notes here. You're not seeing them. Getting close to having the PT page /feed up. We're getting really close. Not there yet, but it just takes longer than you'd think it would. And so hopefully we'll have that up in the next year. Mitchell Williams sent in, actually he commented, we were having this discussion on the last episode about RPM and thrust, percentage of thrust and that kind of thing. And he commented, now I don't know if this is actually true or not, but fan power is a cube function, or power equals N1% to the third power. An estimate of power would be at 88% N1, that would be about 68% power. At 92% N1, it would be about 78% power, and 105% N1 would equal about 115% of available power. Now, That I don't know if that follows along with all engine types, low bypass, high bypass, and that kind of thing. He did provide a link to the JT8D variants on the Boeing 727, some engine data on a website. But again, some other people said, well, I don't know if you can really say that with today's modern high bypass fans. So I have no idea. I'm not an engineer, and I know nothing about this, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. What about you, engineers?
Not me.
Well,
Okay.
all I can say is that when you're sitting there at idle and 40% of power, that is very little power. When you're at 100%, I don't think that's a mere 60% increase. I think it does. The difference between 40% and say 60% isn't very much. When you get up the difference between 80% and 100%, I think that's a lot of power. So I do think it's probably more going to be closer to a logarithmic curve than a straight line on a graphs. But exactly whether that relationship is true or not, it might be a good approximation.
Yeah. I mean, it sounded reasonable based on the JT8Ds that Dana and I fly. But again, I'm not so sure it holds true with the MD90 engine, the 2528 that we fly, the higher bypass turbofan.
Well, there's something to be said in the fundamental difference between the engines is that the JT8D does not have a fuel controller like the newer generations, which have FADEC. So it's more pure jet power versus a high bypass engine.
Well, that's just a matter of the fuel control unit.
Yeah,
I think
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
I
insist. You guys.
Please.
No, I just think that the controller has a logic within it, or an algorithm that will control and will allow you to do certain things and not allow you to do certain things, and it has more power in reserve, I would say, than the JT8D.
That is probably true, but I'm not sure what that has to do with percentage of N1 and thrust, but whatever. I don't know. Maybe the engine experts out there will be able to elucidate or elaborate a little bit more. But anywho, just now I'm kind of not happy that I even mentioned it, but okay.
Why wouldn't you be happy you mentioned it?
I don't know. I hate going down these rat holes.
Well,
we don't have a definitive answer, unfortunately.
Hey, we are really trying to set a precedent here for at least 50% correct.
We blame that already.
No, I think we blew that one. So through the rest of the show, we will increase by being correct in another thing.
Oh, we'll attempt to.
None of us are. I know nothing about engines. I know I turn them on, and I know that I push the thrust levers up.
Well, that's clear from what you just said. So, no, I'm just kidding. Bam.
Oh, wow.
What happens?
See you guys. Have a good day.
Ooh, that actually worked.
Nice one. Look, Dana's gone. What a shame.
All right. Let's see. Let me push some more keys on my keyboard here.
Johnny, how much more coffee? No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup.
All right. The Java Jive is playing in the background as we talk about the Coffee Fund. You, too, can become part of the Coffee Fund cadre and listen to the barbecue, baked beans, dissertations, Captain Nick's wonderful lectures about all kinds of interesting aviation-related stuff. And me, you don't get really much from me. But that's what you expect from me, I guess. If you want to become part of the Coffee Fund cadre, head over to airlinepilotguide.com/coffee, where you can learn about how to support the show financially. Since the last episode, we've had a couple of folks do that. The classic method, Paul De Silva, Kevin Cole, and Steve Trumbull. And we have some new executive producers on Patreon. We have Ron Perkins, Matt Todd, James Devoy, Rob Warren, Steve Hurst, and David Amenta. Thank you, all of you, for your generous contributions to the Airline Pilot Guys show and the Coffee Fund. So, again, head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. Thanks.
Did you mention Paul De Silva?
I did.
I met him last night.
Oh, that's right. You did. And how is it that you met Paul De Silva, Captain?
Well, I was, grumpily climbing out of my airplane and walking through the terminal after being much delayed and having had a medical emergency to deal with as well, which led me to understand that when you arrive at New York with a medical problem, apparently it's dealt with by the New York police, who say that your aircraft is now a crime scene and no one can leave until the medics arrive. So I'm going, what? There's no medics there. Got to keep a delayed airplane. I had to keep all the passengers on until the medics had finally pushed up. Anyway, that by the by. So I was a bit grumpy. And this lovely looking chap in a yellow sort of engineer's jacket walked up and said, hi, you Captain Nick? And I went, yes. And it was Paul De Silva. Yeah, exactly right. And he was working. He's an engineer at Newark. He'd been working and took a little bit of moment off to come and find me as I got off the airplane. We walked through the terminal together, had a quick chat. Sadly, my crew were tired and grumpy on the bus and wanting to get to the hotel, so I couldn't hang around and chat for very long. But it was a pleasure seeing you, Paul. He's had some has some great ideas for plane tales, which he's now emailed me. So I'm going to take a close look at those. And it was just wonderful to bump into you. Thanks, Paul. I did take a picture, which perhaps we can put in the show notes.
All right. Yeah. Send it to me and I'll, I think maybe you already have. I'll try to remember to put that in the show notes. Great. And I believe he works in the engine shop there, right? At Newark?
We didn't get that far.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. In fact, Paul, help us with a stupid question that we had about N1 and, percentage of power and all that kind of stuff. Maybe he should know something about that.
You'd hope so.
Yeah. All right. Very good. It's always good to see the members of our community out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
All right. Let's move on with the news. No, that's not the news. I hit N, but apparently that's not mapped correctly. Let's try this one.
Stand by for news.
Well, we start with not great news. This happened in Iran on the 18th of February. An Iran Osman Airlines Aviation de Transport Regional, an ATR, that's better for me to say, 72, registration Echo Papa Alpha Tango Sierra, performing flight 3704 from Tehran to Yasuj, with 60 passengers and 6 crew, disappeared from radar near the Dina Mountain at about 9:30 local time in the morning. The aircraft was found on February 20th, 2018 at position, well, I'm not going to give you the lat long, at an elevation of approximately 4,000 meters, which is about 13,120 feet. There were no survivors. Emergency services reported fog and snowfall in the crash area, hampering rescue efforts and made it impossible to land helicopters at the crash site. Let's see, on the 21st of February, rescue and recovery personnel reached the crash site and the first bodies had been recovered. The airline confirmed the aircraft was built in 2000, and then they said, oh, wait, no, that's not right. 1993 was when the airplane was built. Crashed in southern Iran due to atmospheric conditions while en route to Yasuj with 60 passengers and 6 crew. The aircraft had departed. Well, we already talked about that. Rescue forces are being dispatched on site. The airline subsequently reported no survivors were found at the crash site. The airline added that the captain involved in the accident flight was experienced, stating he had experienced the failure of a number 2 engine on his aircraft and had been able to safely land the aircraft at this Yasuj airport in 2014. Later on in this article from the Aviation Herald, there is some pictures and some atmospheric METAR information, some pictures from Google Earth, the terrain, very, very high terrain, where the flight path took place. And then it also has some approach charts, en route charts and approach plates or charts indicating the extremely high terrain and the fact that you had to follow certain procedures when you're coming in for a landing on the instrument approach. And I think alluding to the fact that perhaps this may have been pilot error, that they may have descended below the proper minimum altitude before they should have. And it looks like that some of the people here are indicating that it may be one of those controlled flight into terrain kind of episodes or incidents, but I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Have you seen this?
Yeah, and excuse me. I read the report as well, and I think it's a CFIT as well. The cloud height, if I remember correctly, when I was looking at the weather, was about overcast 9,000 feet, and so the clearly the clouds were obscuring the cumulogranite. I don't know beyond that. I don't know whether they were, had misread the approach procedure, whether there was a problem with their technique in flying the approach, or whether there was a problem with the actual navigational facility. So there's a lot of unknowns here, but clearly it's a CFIT.
Well, it has all the signs of that.
Yep.
We don't know for sure. There may have been some kind of an emergency situation going on that prevented them from, staying at the proper altitude. We don't know for sure yet, but I think they have recovered. I'll have to re-look back at the article, but I think they have recovered the black boxes, and so hopefully we'll get some information regarding the actual aircraft performance.
That is pretty unforgiving terrain in that area, isn't it? So if they were to lose an engine, they might very well not be able to maintain separation from that high ground.
Right. As Liz likes to say, or somebody said, cumulogranite. Or no, Dana, you're the one that just said it.
Yes,
I knew I just heard that from somewhere.
Yes.
Let's see. How's my volume, by the way? Is it a little bit better now?
Yeah, sounds good.
I think
okay.
You sound good. You sound like Jeff.
Because I think I had my computer volume down a little bit, and that may have been why you weren't hearing me.
Ah.
Okay, good. Back to normal, hopefully. Anything else you want to say regarding this accident?
No, I think we need a little bit more information, don't we? But geez, it looks
really
a pretty horrible place to go down. It'll take them some time to get assistance to them.
I guess some of the witnesses in the area said that they heard an airplane, flying kind of low, and I don't know why or how somebody could have surmised that they were looking for an open field to land in, but they said that they heard a big explosion, and the results were not good at all.
Yeah, pretty sad situation. Hate to comment a whole lot on it until we have more facts, I think.
All right. Well, then let's move on to B. In the news folder, we have an update on the incident that we talked about on a recent episode regarding the Southwest Airlines jet at LAX, Los Angeles International, and a news report. Apparently, the reporter not fully up to speed on aviation lingo and understanding of how things work in aviation, and we were having some fun with that. You'll remember that a man broke through a perimeter fence and came out to the airplane and went into the wheel well and grabbed a fire extinguisher, she said, or he said. I don't remember if it was a male or female. It doesn't matter. And then there was some kind of an alarm that went off, and we were all kind of scratching our heads thinking, well, none of this really makes a lot of sense. But I think that it'll clarify a bit here when we play this audio.
Southwest 2494, RNM Delray, runway 24 left, 6 to go.
RNM Delray, 24 left, 30 to go, Southwest 2494. There's a guy jumping on the airplane here, 2494. We're holding short.
Southwest 2494, Roger. Cancel takeoff clearance, hold in position.
There's a guy, I think you don't know what he's doing. He's climbing on the wheel well or something.
Okay, city ops, South 7 Star.
Pick up A3, what's on the that's Echo 6?
He's on runway 24 left at Echo 6, affirmative.
Roger, show 24 left, please.
Okay. 10 Captain, runway 24 left is closed. Southwest 4293, go around.
Go around Southwest 4293.
4293, fly runway heading, maintain 2000. Compass 6078, fly the final approach course and go around. Please maintain 2000.
Maintain 2000, final approach course, compass 6078.
South 2494, maintain 2000, contact SoCal departure 125.2.
2000, go, what is the frequency, Southwest 4293?
Thanks.
Say again, the frequency for Southwest 4293?
25.2.
25.2 there.
And we're trying to get somebody out there for you, Southwest 2494.
Okay. Southwest 4293, I'm sorry, say that frequency again for Southwest 4293?
Southwest 4293, 125.2.
252, we'll give them another call.
Thanks.
We set our number 1 engine down, we're getting the APU going.
Okay.
Paris City SA3.
Compass 6078, fly runway heading, maintain 2000.
Auto heading 2000, compass 6078.
Hey, he just took off. He's running to the right of the aircraft. He's running northbound across the field right now.
Please, 3, are you still up?
He's running towards 24 right.
Man that was climbing on an airplane that is in position on runway 24 left, he's running to the north. They said running northbound now.
SA3 copy, show 24 left.
Yeah, he's a Beamer's running towards 24 left, and he's running northeastbound across 24 left. He doesn't have a shirt on.
Okay, they said he's running eastbound across runway 24 left. Thanks.
SA3 copy.
Yeah, we can see him. He's all the way. He's almost to the fence now on the far side of the field. We can see him through the light. They should be able to see him running.
Okay, Ops 90, you have him in sight?
He's almost to the wall.
On the north side? On the north of 24 right?
Yeah, he's on the north side of 24 right. He's running towards the wall.
7678, contact SoCal 125.2.
152, compass 6078.
Coming up on him. You got another 200 feet there. You should see him on the right.
I got him.
Police 3, he's where that ops vehicle is with the cops cart there on the north side of the airport. It looks like he's trying to hop the fence.
I got him.
Hey, they got him. Hey, and for 2494, we need to go back to the gate and get this inspected. We had a light go off in the wheel well, too.
Yeah, 24 right. It's north. He's just along the fence there, south of Lincoln. South 2494, okay, whatever you want to do. Do you want to exit the runway now?
Yeah, we want to go back to the gate. Yeah.
Okay, South is 2494, thanks. Turn left there at Echo 7, contact ground point 65.
Left turn Echo 7 and ground 2494, thanks.
Paris City SA3, just confirming both runways are closed, correct?
Okay, we'll show them both closed.
SA3, roger.
I'm still waiting for the Southwest that went around to ask again. What was that frequency again?
Yeah.
125. That just goes to show you when everything is just going along hunky-dory and the weather is nice and everything else, and all of a sudden something like crazy like this could happen. It really kind of catches you off guard. At least when you're in like low visibility conditions or severe weather, you're kind of, have that in the back of your mind that you could possibly need to perform a go around. But let's see if I can do this here. You can always go around.
Hope so.
But there are times like this when you're not even really thinking about a go around, and it just it does startle you. Like what go around? What was that frequency again? So I can understand the confusion. But so this does now make things a little bit more clear, and I can kind of understand what the journalist was trying to say when they were writing the words in that article. The item that somebody had surmised, I believe it was Larry Geezer in Tulsa, in the wheel well of the Southwest jet was most likely the APU fire handle, or I think that's what we call it. And and then that would make sense that they would get a light. So all those guesses, I think, are proving to be true. That I guess the guy, when they started up their APU, Nick, the guy out there decided, I don't want the APU running. I'm going to shut it down. At least the crew thought enough to shut down the number one engine, thinking that there's an idiot out there that has no clue what he's doing, and I don't want to suck him into the intake of the number one. I guess he must have been.
I got the impression that he'd gone under the aircraft before they actually shut down the engine, trying to start the APU. So I'm wondering how they managed to get the APU going after the guy had fired the APU extinguisher.
I don't know. Maybe they tried to start it up and then the guy pulled it. I don't know what the sequence was.
Yeah, there's really no indication whether they ever got the APU started, and if he had actually pulled the fire handle on the outside of the aircraft, they wouldn't be able to do that.
It's always interesting to hear the communications going on there, and you could hear sounds like both of the pilots in the Southwest jet were trying to say something on the comm frequency, like there's a guy out here running around.
Exactly.
So what?
Yeah, and I thought it was amusing use of terms when they say the guy's taken off.
So that's
he got his own airplane.
An American phrase, I think. When he takes off, it's like they leave quickly.
Yeah, but in the context of him running around on the runway, I thought that was quite amusing.
Roger, well, I didn't clear you for takeoff. Anyway, so
a shirtless take off at that.
Yeah,
he did take off something.
What is this about guys out there that are behaving badly, taking their shirts off?
I don't know. Maybe they're trying to flex their muscle.
Seems to be a common thread. Beware the man who takes his shirt off. You might want to stay away. Might just want to stay away. All right.
Might we say they're knocking futs?
Pardon?
Might we say they're knocking futs?
Okay.
Family show.
You might say that. You might say that. I have no idea what you're saying. Let's see. C in the news folder. Incident. Southwest B737 at Salt Lake City on February 26th. That was just a few days ago. Engine shut down in flight. Now, I was reading a non-aviation related news site that said that the engine shut down because it was on fire. Well, no. It specifically says in the Aviation Herald that there was no engine fire indication, but that the engine was what's the word I'm looking for, was encountering a compressor stall or a series of compressor stalls. And in fact, there is a YouTube video of somebody under the flight path as this thing was climbing out of Salt Lake City, grabbed the cell phone, hit the video record button, and we'll play a little bit of audio for you. You can hear what he heard and what caused this man to run out of the building that he was in and to start recording. I was hoping there was going to be some more there, but kind of hard to hear, but almost sounds like gunshots in the background. But look at the video; it'll be in the show notes, and then you'll see the flames coming out the back of the engine. And I can see why some people might think, "Oh, it's an engine fire," but actually, it was just the disruption of airflow and the resultant compressor stalls, and the crew did a fine job of going out, holding a bit, analyzing the situation, and then coming back and landing safely at Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how easy and relatively common it is compared with a lot of engine problems that a compressor stall is, and how simple it is for a pilot, and how many of us have probably had them in our careers, how simple it is to clear. Usually just throttling back the engine is sufficient to clear it, and certainly shutting it down will clear it. And if there's no damage done, you can, probably not advisable if you don't have to, but you can relight the engine and it should be fine. If it's caused by blade damage or something which is disrupting the airflow, then of course that's not advisable. But if you suspect there's no damage done, and it was perhaps due to a misbalanced fuel or other problem that the engine might have encountered, then there's usually no reason, if you would need to get it going again. But it certainly needs checking out once you've landed, that's for sure.
Well, and that's you mentioned if the engine is not damaged, or fan blades are not damaged in the flight deck, the only way that you're really going to know how or what is going on with the engine is your engine instruments. So, for example, if you have a good N1 and N2, that means that the fan blades are spinning out there. Another way that you would know is if any vibration, noise. That's how you could tell what type of damage, or if you have any damage to the engine. Obviously, a fire warning would be a perfect example that you know that you have something massive going on with that engine, obviously with a fire. But in that case, they did not get a fire warning because it was indeed not a fire in the engine. It was just a compressor stall. So just to expand upon what Nick said, that's how we would in the flight deck know whether there was damage to the engine or not. That's how we evaluate it.
And Liz is asking about, what's the difference between a compressor stall and a flame out? And they're not the same thing. A flame out is when the engine stops operating, it just flames out. The compressor stall, the engine is usually going to continue to operate, and it might still be stalling and banging. And then, as Nick mentioned, the first thing that you would do as a pilot is, retard the thrust on the affected engine to see if you can reduce the amount of airflow required. And that usually will stop the engine from doing the compressor stalling, just reducing the power. And then if necessary, you can always shut it down yourself, but it's not the same as a flame out. And also, I think I mentioned this in the past, that it was not uncommon on the 727, especially that middle engine, for us to have compressor stalls, and that was just because of the interruption of the flow of air through that S duct to getting to the engine. Sometimes if you were in a moderate to high crosswind, you had to be very careful advancing the throttle on the number 2 engine, because you did not want for that engine to demand too much until there was a good flow of air going to the front of it. So anyway, interesting. And
yeah, in the military, we used to get these quite often, and often because of the amount of maneuvering you're doing, it's quite easy to disrupt the airflow into the intake, which could cause a stall. And it was quite common to get a few bangs, pull the throttle back, clear the stall, re-advance the throttle again. If it's fine, you just carry on fighting. You go through a combat, you might have one engine that was a bit prone, you might clear 2 or 3 stalls during a bit of combat. They carry on.
Yeah, and usually it doesn't do any damage if it's just a disruption of airflow. Now, if it's, as you mentioned, Nick, one of those situations where the fan blade itself has deformed or come apart or something like that, then you are dealing with a much more serious problem.
Absolutely.
Well, and if you take just in the context of the words that we're using, compressor, stall, put that into context of the aviation world. When we're talking about an aircraft stalling, that just means loss of airflow, and does not, it's not detrimental. You just reestablish the airflow to the aircraft. Rephrase that. Usually not detrimental. It can be in certain circumstances, but certainly if you reestablish airflow, then you recover from the stall. So that's why compressor stall versus an engine flame out. Flame out is nothing's happened. The prop is stopped spinning. So that's one way to think of it.
That very good, and you're perfectly right. What do we do if we stall a wing? Well, we reduce the angle of attack, and then the air is flowing over the wing in a laminar fashion. And the same thing we do with the, by pulling the power back. Usually, that's restoring that laminar flow to the compressor blades, and getting it out of a critical angle of attack. Those are little individual blades.
Yep.
All right. This was an interesting one. Item D, panic as bag bursts into flames on plane. And there's a photo here, and I can understand why there might be a little panic. Quite a lot of flames are coming from this bag in an overhead bin. It says terrified passengers were forced to evacuate a plane after a passenger's bag in the overhead compartment suddenly burst into flames. And they were boarding Sunday's China Southern Airlines flight from Guangzhou to Shanghai when smoke began to fill the cabin. A video taken on board showed a bag on fire in the overhead compartment, and the show notes will have the video if you want to watch it. It's on YouTube. Passengers and cabin crew could be seen trying to put out the flames with bottles of water and juice. Not sure why you'd want to use juice, but if you don't have anything else, I guess throw some juice on it. Eventually, fire crews and security came on board and managed to put out the blaze. The fire did not cause further damage to the plane, the airline said. The owner of the bag was taken off the plane to talk to police. The cause of the fire appeared to be a power bank. Yet again, how many times are we hearing about these issues with things catching on fire, and they're the actual external batteries, the power banks, that are the culprit?
The trouble is they're very easy to get hold of, and they're inexpensive, and the good ones, with the expensive ones, are the ones with all the built-in safety factors, whereas the inexpensive ones that are mass-produced, perhaps from the Far East, they're much less likely to be safe, much more likely to have this problem.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that they weren't in flight and it didn't get out of control. So it looks like everybody was able to get off the airplane safely.
Yeah, but it's a bit like carrying a little firebomb in your bag, isn't it? I mean, look at the size of those flames. And I think they were just trying to throw coolant on it, as you're correctly supposed to do. We discussed that, douse it in water. I think the next available liquid to hand was orange juice.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, that'll do.
As long as it's not a flammable liquid, I guess.
It will smell nice, at least.
Yeah, it would
It's a nice
be.
orange,
Roasted
burnt orange
orange.
smell.
Yeah.
All right, and then finally in the news bag we have this: a Ryanair flight 737, of course, 800. Let's see, registration Echo India, Echo Kilo India, performing flight 8421 from Edinburgh, Scotland to let's see,
Fuerteventura.
Yes, on the 10th of February. You want to hear that again?
Fuerteventura.
There we go. They were climbing out of the origin airport, and they were en route at flight level 370. So they were not climbing out of the origin airport. Scratch that. They were en route at flight level 370, nearing the top of descent towards the Canary Islands when the crew requested to descend to flight level 130. Air traffic control cleared the flight to descend to flight level 130. However, when the aircraft descended through flight level 364, the controller instructed the aircraft to stop the descent at flight level 360. So 400 feet above that altitude, they were asked to go ahead and stop at 36. The aircraft descended below flight level 360 while the crew adjusted the autopilot. The crew disconnected the autopilot and climbed the aircraft to flight level 360 manually. The passenger fell as a result of the maneuver and broke a leg. The aircraft continued to
Fuerteventura
and landed about 20 minutes later. Now, the reason why I put this in here, no big deal, right? I mean, it's a big deal for the guy that broke his leg. But the point I wanted to make here is that sometimes again, that startle factor, you're descending, you're thinking you're thinking you're going to descend all the way to 13,000 feet. And then all of a sudden ATC comes on and says, for whatever reason, maybe there was some traffic that the controller forgot about or whatever, and go ahead and level off at 360. And that happens. It's not an uncommon thing for us to get an amended clearance like that. And the point that I want to make here is that it's not necessary to do a Yahoo maneuver and pull a lot of G's if you happen to overshoot. So, you're 400 feet above, I don't know, you're probably coming down at 1,000, 2,000 feet per minute. And somebody tells you to stop at 36. You start doing something with your autopilot control panel, your autoflight system. Maybe it's not doing exactly what you were expecting it to do, or perhaps it's not doing it as quickly as you're hoping it will. And you think for whatever reason that if you actually get below 36, you're going to crash into something, which is most likely not the case. And just, let it go below 36 and just nice and calmly and smoothly bring it back to the altitude that they've requested. I mean, I think that if it's something very, very urgent, you can sense that in the controller's voice, and you'll most likely have some other clues that something terrible is about to happen, like you'll have your TCAS system probably blaring, telling you to adjust your rate of climb, etc. So I guess, that was the only point that I was going to try to make with this news article.
No, I think that's a great point, Jeff. And you make the point about flying your aircraft in a controlled and smooth manner, and you pride yourself in your ability to do that. These blokes had only descended 600 feet when they got the reclearance. So I'm just wondering how steep a descent they had initiated. If I was setting off, I would be progressively increasing my rate of descent because you're not going to just pull open descent or whatever the equivalent is in a 737 and let the airplane stick the nose down, because often it will build up quite a high rate of descent. I'll sort of dial in 500 feet a minute and then let the airplane stabilize at that, which should be a nice smooth transition in. Then I might wind it up to 1,000 feet a minute and just gently increase it so that the aircraft does a nice controlled entry to the descent. If you've only gone down 600 feet, you won't have very many degrees nose down. You won't have to do much to arrest that. So I'm just wondering what kind of a descent they initiated.
Well, here's the thing. That's very senior experienced pilots talking here, and I have to say that Acme, one of the things that they taught, and Jeff, you can probably relate to this, is we were taught to use VNAV. So when they teach you to use VNAV and not do the smooth controlled descent, especially in aircraft, I can't speak for the 73. I know they have VNAV obviously and LNAV. But I don't know how its entry will be if you're in a VNAV mode and you select to go down to 13,000 feet. I don't know, flight level 130. I don't know how the autopilot's going to calculate that out. So in our aircraft, I know if we get that type of a clearance and I hit VNAV, the airplane immediately rolls over to about 2,500 to 3,000 foot per minute and will get itself established first, and then it'll go to computer lockout manual power. So in other words, then now we can adjust our descent rate via the auto throttle. Auto throttles kind of lock themselves out and they can use power to control your descent rate. So our initial entry using VNAV on the Mad Dog will be a pretty high entry rate. It will just nose the airplane over and come on down. However, technique wise, that's not the way I would do it. I get the airplane going down and slow it, slow its descent rate pretty quickly down to, 1,000 foot to 1,500 feet per minute. And the autopilot tends to, if in this case, it would dip down and probably would not react very quickly. And I would tend to probably click the autopilot off myself and go ahead and pull the nose back up to flight level 360. But I don't know. I mean, we don't know how fast or how hard they pull, but obviously they pull pretty hard. But all it takes is 1 G, and you're doubling the person's weight. So you don't, if you're not expecting that, then it's very easy for the person to be startled and possibly hurt themselves. And they may have had, we don't know about the passenger themselves. Maybe they have an older person that has osteoarthritis that could very easily have a bone broken. I mean, so there are a lot of factors here that I don't think are really covered in detail, other than the fact that we as professional airline pilots, we tend to try to make the flight as smooth as possible. And that's what both you guys were talking about is, roll the airplane over, get a nice descent rate going so the airplane just doesn't pitch over and start a high rate descent.
Well, a couple things. You're right in the airplane that we fly, Dana, that if the calculated descent path or descent point has been passed, when you actually get a clearance to descend and you roll that new altitude in the altitude window, it will actually pretty aggressively nose down and pick up a very high rate of descent. Now, and this might be why in this case, when in the article it says that the crew requested to descend to 13, so they may have been looking at the computer system's calculation of the descent point and realized that they were either getting very close to it or perhaps even past it. And if they did initiate a VNAV or vertical navigation descent, perhaps the computer was flying through the autoflight system was trying to re-establish that path that it had calculated. Now, experienced pilots, those of us that are here on the panel know that if that's the situation, we're aware of it, and then we will not let the airplane do that. We'll go into some other kind of a mode that will give us a nice, easy, gradual descent and not nose down. Of course, we don't really know. It doesn't say in the article here how quickly that descent started. My only point was, even if that happened, as Captain Nick pointed out, it's only descended 600 feet by this point. I mean, you can, even if it was heading down toward 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 feet per minute, it has not reached that point yet because it's only descended 600 feet. But even if it were 3,000, 4,000 feet per minute, let the airplane go through that altitude that they've amended and climb gradually back up to it. Just be cognizant, I guess the point I'm trying to make is cognizant of the fact that there are people in the back of your airplane standing up, especially those in the tail of the airplane, where you're going to get the greatest effect of a reversal. And I guess that was my point.
Well, and you're right. I mean, in Nico responded. He said the VNAV on the 737 aims for 1,000 feet per minute. If you're below calculated path or on path, on path. So,
but if you're over the path or past the path,
it's
so in other words,
pushing
you see that path indicator at the bottom of the case, like you're looking at a glide slope and you see that the glide slope is down at the bottom of the case. That means you're way above it. And so if the computer thinks you're way above that calculated descent path, it's going to go, whoa, I better get down to that thing. And that's when Dana and I go, don't think so. And we go into some other kind of mode. And for me, it's always vertical speed.
Well, another important point, Jeff, here is that air traffic control. All right, there. We've been drilled in the. I don't know about over with you, Nick, but I know that we've been drilled. Altitude, altitude deviations. Don't do them. Don't do them. Don't do them. Try to, do everything you do. Make sure you verify. Don't, deviate from the altitude. So we're always constantly thinking, okay, that's a hard altitude. We got to be there. But the air traffic controller with 400 feet to go gave them the new altitude. It's pretty hard to expect a turbojet aircraft to be able to, within 400 feet, if it's coming down at a good pace, to be able to level off and not go below the, in this case, it's we're going from 370 to they wanted you to stop at 360, and so we're at 364 is when they give you the clearance. While you're coming down probably 1,000, 1,500 feet per minute, it's going to take a little bit for the airplane to come back up and level off without doing a massive pull up on the aircraft. So I agree with you, Jeff. It would be normal for in air traffic control knows this because they gave you the clearance late, is that you're going to dip down below the 360, that you don't need to 400 feet. I got to level off and grab onto the airplane and pull and yank the nose of the airplane up so you don't go below the 360. It's right. Pretty much understood at that point by ATC. I gave him the late clearance. There's no way he's going to be at 360. It might be 356 or 358 by the time he recovers and gets back up to 360. So,
and a lot of the times the air traffic control will say, I know, I realize this is a late clearance, just, you can take you can go through it and then, get back up to it, so it's probably some kind of a traffic conflict that's maybe 30 to 50 miles ahead or something, something way ahead. And the controller didn't think about it when they gave you that initial clearance. And so, it's not something that you have to just overreact to, I guess, is the point that I was trying to make. So I think we all agree. And that's always a good thing when we all agree on the APG. So now it's time for the best part of the show, which of course is your feedback.
Captain, incoming message.
Okie doke. Let's start off with this one. This we received quite a while back. I'm trying to find the date. Oh, a little after the beginning of the year, January 7th. This was from Captain Troy, and he gives us a link to an article, a very serious article, I'm sure, about our sister airline, an airline very, very similar to Acme. It's named Delta. They're adding a button that lets the pilot know you want the plane to go faster. So there's a picture here of the overhead panel where you can see the, what do they call that? The passenger service unit with the air vents and the lighting and the button that you push for the flight attendant. And there's a button right next to the light button that says faster. And so with shrinking legroom and disappearing amenities, flying is becoming more and more of an uncomfortable grind. But one airline is doing its part to reverse that trend and make air travel more flyer friendly. Delta is adding a button to every seat that lets the pilot know that you want the plane to go faster. Finally, an airline that truly understands the customer experience. And it goes on. Of course, it's
I love this. I wish they put it out the 1st of April, though.
Yeah, they should have. You're right.
I think that might be in reference to the flight attendants.
Pardon me?
I'm making a joke out of it.
Oh.
I think it would be in reference to the flight attendants moving a little bit faster to get things.
Oh, get their drinks faster.
Yeah, where's my drinks? Faster.
Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. And that, you know, that brings up the. I know this is meant as satire, but I think a lot of people. You know, so let's say we're running late, and in my PA, I might say we're going to, go as fast as we can to make up as much time as we can, and then I think a lot of the passengers will go, well, why weren't you going as fast as you could go to begin with? And why would we not go as fast as we possibly could all the time, Dana?
Fuel savings, economy.
Ah, okay.
I would say that that it's economical and you have a much longer cruise range if you are not burning as much gas trying to go as fast as you can. So just like if you're on the highway driving your vehicle, if the speed limit says 65, most people will probably do 65 to 75. But if you notice your gas gauge, if you start going above that, your range, in a lot of these new cars have this digital ability that will show you your cruise range based on how many gallons you have and how fast you're going. But if you look at your total range, then it would go down substantially because, well, in an aircraft, we're fighting friction. And it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to go ahead and go fast all the time. Plus, not only that, the schedule reliability. So, airlines will go ahead and put out a planned schedule time based on the average of a stage length between two cities. So what does that mean? That means between those two cities, you have an average over a certain amount of time of how long each flight takes. And based on the, an economic value. So, on a scale of 0 to 100, which we used to put 100% in our econ, which was go as fast as we could go all the time way back in the day. Now we'll put like 48 to 50% because it balances flight time versus the economy of the aircraft to give it the best cruise range for the best speed for the best configuration, which be including weight and current weather conditions. So we do have the ability to speed it up sometimes, but not all the time. Even if we fly fast, does it really make that much of a difference? We're just burning a lot more jet fuel.
Yeah. And the other thing is that air traffic control, it kind of expects you to be flying a certain speed. And if you fly significantly faster than what they were expecting you to, that causes a little issue with spacing of other aircraft out there and, trying to get you around them and all that kind of stuff. So, there are some things that it does impact. And so we can't just, unilaterally decide, you know what, we're going to go ahead and fly this speed instead without notifying air traffic control. We have to tell them that we're going to be flying a little bit faster than we had initially planned.
Yeah, and that's per the FAA flight plan. You know, every aircraft that flies in the instrument via IFR instrument flight rules, every one of them has a speed that's associated with it. And I forget the number. Is it 20 knots?
20 knots, and or it's a percentage like 0.05% of the true airspeed or something, within 5% of the true airspeed that you told them you were going to be flying. You know, we always get our whiz wheels out and make all those calculations. Not. You know,
it's just
easier to tell them you're going to be, you know, I know we filed for 7.6 Mach and we're going to be flying at 7.9 or 8 or whatever.
Yeah, that's you know, you mentioned it earlier, pet peeves. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. Is air traffic control will tell you to slow down, and next thing you know, they clear you direct to a point further down line. It's like
Jeff's pet peeve.
that might be one for our colleagues and friends over at Opposing Bases to notch on and give us an answer on. But why do you tell us to slow down? Then next thing you know, you're cutting a corner and saying it's direct, and it defeats the whole purpose of us slowing down. So
we always look at each other in the cockpit and go, "What?" Like, and roll our eyes. Okay, wait, you wanted me to speed up, and now you're giving me a vector away, or vice versa. You know, you slow us down, but now you're giving me a direct. And yeah, that would be a good one.
That's a good one for OG and RH.
Nick, do you have any input regarding flying faster and
parking spots?
Parking spots. Oh, that's another great one. Yeah, we're going into the big hubs.
If you get there too early, you often have to wait for your stand to come free. So there's no much point arriving early. And the only other one, we talked about going to Port Harcourt on the last show, which was an African airfield we used to sometimes regularly had a service into. I used to sometimes fly it. Because of the departure time and the fact that it was a captain's only landing in daylight, we used to have to bring the speed right back, often flying at min drag speed, you know, the minimum safe speeds, to try and extend the flight time so that we wouldn't land before dawn. And of course, we're trying to avoid any directs. So there'd be air traffic going, the Frenchman, you are clear to Montélimar. And you go, negative, thank you, we'll stick to the flight plan. Pardon? What? What? You don't want to direct? No, thank you, not tonight. What is the matter with you?
We get paid by the minute.
We used to create a lot of confusion for the air traffickers when we used to continually refuse directs to try and keep the flight time to the required landing time.
There you go. Another, you know,
just more time to eat your bonbons.
I beg your pardon.
That's it. You just want more time to eat your bonbons.
Yeah, whatever a bonbon is. Yeah, sure.
I was thinking to myself, he probably doesn't know what a bonbon is. It's a lovely chocolate covered vanilla ice cream
eclair type thing.
Yeah. Anyway, what else was I going to say there? You threw me off with the bonbons.
Title
of the show right there.
Excellent. It's an excellent point. Excellent point, because you know, going in and out of hub and spokes, that's probably one of the things I should have mentioned. But excellent point, Nick. Is gate constraints and you know, you have so many aircraft coming in and out of a hub, and there's only so many gates. So if you arrive too early, then you sit out there, and people want, you know, well, we're here, and why are we sitting out here? And it becomes and people get really antsy. They're on the ground. They want to get off the airplane.
It's human nature. It's just one of those odd things. If you're up there holding for a half an hour, and then you land and you go right to your gate, people are usually, even if you're running a bit late, are more satisfied than if you end up landing and arrive on the ramp 30 minutes before your scheduled arrival time, and then you just sit there on the ramp waiting for your gate to clear. That just frustrates people. I guess just so close, but yet so far away, right?
Yeah. I always try and show them which aircraft's blocking the parking position, so that at least they can, unless it's one of ours, in which case I was going to say, if it's like Air France or whatever,
Yeah, these Air France people are
Yeah.
impeding our progress.
That awful airline Delta. I mean, they're often
those guys
blocking.
They're
our
the worst.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Number 2, Alex. Why does the captain sit on the left? He says potentially the next 2 questions are the most basic you've received. Now, we've received much more basic questions. But whilst sitting at the back of another delayed Boeing plane, Airbus, my kingdom for an Airbus. Oh, I see now. I was thinking to myself, is this Alex the Boeing hater? It is. It's Alex. He even assigned it. Alex the Boeing hater. I sit here wondering about
Boeing wrong. Have you noticed that? He puts an E
no,
in.
he spells it correctly. Boeing. Thank you very much. I sit here wondering about 2 basic things. Why does the captain sit on the left and not the right? Is this the case for all commercial aircraft? I think helicopter captains sit on the right.
They
right?
do. Yes,
Yep.
correct.
Also, carrying on the left and right theme, why do we always enter an aircraft from the left and fuel on the right? I guess it's influenced by the captain being on the left, right? Right?
Left, right?
Left. But one of these days, I want to board from the right just for the heck of it. Great show from Alex the Boeing hater. Well, Alex the Boeing hater, we have actually covered this, and I say we, that's not actually correct. I covered this question about sitting on the left and the right way back in like episode 90 something or other. So it was when I was doing the show by myself. So I thought, you know what, we can talk about this again because it's been such a long time since we have. I'm going to include in the show notes this list of possible reasons for why the captain sits on the left and not on the right. And for just a few here, I'll talk about. After World War I, most airplanes had rotary engines with left-turning tendencies because it followed the torque of the engine. Therefore, turning left was easier than turning right. And because of this, pilots considered left turns as more convenient.
Well, I'm going to wave the BS flag there.
Okay.
Because those aircraft were single seats. So you sat in the middle. There's no left or right on a single seat airplane. So that's BS.
Okay. There's BS on that. A lot of these are BS, by the way. Let's see. The second one, since the early days of aviation, the fact that the pilot was sitting on the left, they kept the airplane on the right side along the airway.
I'm going to flag BS there.
Okay.
Because who's to say that because they were sitting on the left, they flew on the right, or they flew on the right, so the captain sat on the left? Chicken and egg, which one came first?
Mm-hmm. Well, so what would you say would be the most likely reason for this design, Captain Nick?
I've absolutely no idea.
Okay.
And I don't think anyone does. I think it's like one of those things. Which side of the road do you drive on? Well, you just make up your mind. You start driving on one side. You know, which side is the senior bloke going to sit on? I don't know.
Yeah.
Perhaps one day an aeroplane was built and it was slightly warmer on the left. So the captain said, well, I'm always going to sit in this seat because this is warmer. And from there on, everyone started sitting on the left. I don't know.
Well, you know, I think there might be a scientific base to this, and I wish Dr. Steph was here to answer this question, but aren't men predominantly left brain, what's the word I'm looking for?
Left brain thinkers?
Yeah, left brain thinkers. The left side of their brain is their predominant part of their brain.
Most analytical part of the brain.
Yep. So, well, men were heavily involved with the development of aviation and development of aircraft. So one would think that maybe left-hand hemisphere of their brain was the dominant. You waving a flag too? I was just throwing that out there.
The left side of your brain controls the right side of your body. And we're generally speaking right-handers. So if you're using the throttles in your left hand and the control yoke, as it would have been on these old-fashioned airplanes, in your right hand, that would be the more natural. So that's the first officer's side. Well, you know, a captain has to fly the aircraft with his left hand, which is not usually his dominant hand, and controls the throttles with his right. So what's that about? I mean, apart from that, those old airplanes with all mechanical flying controls. Oh, I do apologize, Jeff. You guys fly.
That's okay.
Kind of airplanes.
I like my mechanical controls. Thank you.
You probably control that old-fashioned control yoke better with your dominant strong arm, which is your right hand. So really, you ought to be sitting in the right seat if you're the primary pilot.
Yeah, dominant arm would be tend to over control. Its left hand is nice and smooth on that.
No, I think you need muscles on those old airplanes, not smoothness.
I wouldn't have a clue. I've never taxied in Mad Dog.
So I'm thinking this is the answer here. One of the last ones listed. Horse-mounted right-handed soldiers wear their sword on their left side. To mount a horse with a sword hanging down your left leg, you need to mount from the left to swing your right leg over. So they naturally mounted their aircraft from the same side. That makes perfect sense. It has something to do with horses and sword
mounting.
And it must be much easier to stick your sword down the left side of the cockpit because there's not a lot of controls there. If you had a sword and you climbed into the cockpit and you tried to put it down the right side, the center console would get in the way. So but it's for all those ex-cavalry pilots who flew with their swords.
It's got to be the answer. There you go, Alex. Let's see. And then he also asked about why we board on the left side and not the right. And I wonder if that has something. Isn't there a reason why ships always approach a dock at a certain side? What do they call it? Starboard, port, and starboard. Port side is obviously the side that they come up to a dock, and the starboard side is the opposite side. I'm wondering if that has something to do with why. So port is left, right?
Yeah.
I mean, correct. I'm getting confused now with lefts and rights and correct. Port side is the left side. And so that's the side to which you would, bring the boat into port. And that's where you would load a ship, right? Or a boat. So maybe that's why that just carried over into airplanes. I don't know.
If you're correct, port is left and starboard is right.
But I still don't understand why you need to bring a ship in on the port side.
I guess they decided they had to standardize it. So they decided that we'll just make it this side, and we're going to call it the port side because that's the way you bring it into a port. I don't know. These are just too difficult questions for us to answer, to ponder.
Right. Yeah.
I also threw this in. He sent us another piece of feedback after those initial questions. And he said, what do you notice and observe as a pilot when you're flying as a passenger? This will be a good one for Captain Nick because he's going to be doing that tonight as he heads back to London. He says he just read an article that stated the below as the top 5 in no particular order. Pilots look out for ice accumulation on windows and wings. Pilots are aware and sensitive to changes or abnormal smells, not from your fellow passengers, he says.
Captain Al.
Notice any changes in the light angles in the cabin to indicate the plane is changing direction. We observe and listen to fellow pilot communications with passengers, especially during delays and how it's communicated. Yeah, we do, I think. I do. We observe how smooth the landing is and silently judge the pilot flying. He said, I added that bit. And that's true, too. We do judge other people's landings. And then number 6, quickly observe where the exits are in case of an emergency. He said the below is the top 5, but actually that's 6. But I think I could agree with all of those things, actually. What do you think, Captain Nick?
Yeah, and that kind of goes along with what I would put number 1 is how good the champagne is, but then I'd probably look at the others. I guess I probably do most of that.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Dana, you say same thing? Kind of looking for
same thing. I mean, I'm a sounds guy, so I'm always listening for configurations and what the engines are doing, making sure they're both operating. So. And I can quite often tell quite quickly, based on what I'm hearing with the engines, what we're about to do. So,
yeah,
that's I agree with all those, and then I just I listen to.
Well, do you wonder what Alex finds, himself doing when he is a passenger?
Oh,
he told us. He said, number 1, how clean or dirty the interior is of the cabin. Number 2, look at the selection of films and realized I've seen most of them. Number 3, wait with dread to see if I will have a peacock or Captain Al elephant, a human, or something else next to me. Oh, that was kind of rude.
Fancy calling Captain Al an elephant. That's
I
a
think
bit
so.
rude.
I mean, that's the way it reads. Number 4, look out the window and think, why am I not a pilot? I'm in the wrong job. Number 5, silently judge people who recline their seat as the plane is taking off and judge the pilot if his or her landing is a bit sporty. Number 6, always check the plane model. If it's an Airbus, all is great in my world. Embraer, I think, are these planes really built in a jungle? Boeing, I check to make sure that the wings are attached and the pilots are not too depressed to be flying a plane from the 60s. And if I'm in Europe, I think about my life choices and why I'm flying on Ryanair.
Oh, yeah. Great points, Alex.
Those are excellent.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your feedback, and I think a lot of people share a lot of those. What you're thinking as a passenger. Number 1, by the way, how clean or dirty the interior of the cabin is. It doesn't matter really to most passengers how clean or dirty the outside of the airplane is, but they really do pay attention to the interior, and that's why airlines very often refit and redo their cabin interiors, because they understand that to passenger is kind of a benchmark or an indication as to whether or not this airplane is going to be safe or not.
Well, so here's the real deal. How many passengers really see the outside of the aircraft for any amount of time? Most passengers spend the entire flight inside the aircraft, looking inside the airplane and looking around at all the fixtures and the floor and the seat in front of them and the hairline of the person that just reclined into their personal space, a lack of a hairline in my case. So those are what people spend anywhere from an hour to 10 hours on the airplane. That's what they're looking at, is what's inside the aircraft, and they really can't see what's on the outside. So that's why it would be more important, in my opinion.
All right. Well, moving on. Thank you, Alex, the Boeing hater, for your feedback and questions. Larry and Andy, in separate pieces of feedback, sent us cartoons, knowing that we probably, as pilots, don't really know how to read, but we can look at cartoons and kind of understand what's going on. The first one is from Larry Gregory in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it is, I don't know what the comic is here. I don't really read them or look at them anymore, but it starts off with some strange-looking animals. Hey, rat, this is my friend Al. He's an airplane pilot. Oh, yeah? I have a question. Why do you keep getting on the intercom to tell me about the altitude and wind direction and other things that only you care about? And then the pilot says, because I love the sound of my own voice. And then the mouse looks around the rat. Well, now we know. And then the captain or pilot says, it's all I can do to not sing karaoke.
It must be you, Jeff. They're talking about you.
That is, they are talking about me, I think.
They have to
I guess.
be about you.
But you know what? I think that people who listen to this show probably are also people that are concerned about the altitude and the wind direction and other things. I think maybe most passengers don't. I try to think about that when I'm doing my PAs. I'm thinking, really? Is that something that they really care about? Probably not, so I probably won't say it. Let's see. So what's going on here with Stephanie as a little aside?
Yeah.
Something about the dentist.
Yeah, does look like she'll be joining us. Her appointment's at 4.
She rescheduled it for 4 o'clock, not 2 o'clock. Okay. Well, we're going to move on then. It's going to be a whole show without Steph. Again, she wasn't here last week either. Oh, well. The second cartoon that we received was from Andy Meyer. He says, on the last episode, y'all talked about a comic, and I couldn't resist sending my favorite in. Thank you all for the podcasts. Hope to get together in New Orleans soon. Ooh, that would be a lot of fun. I love New Orleans. And of course, it's another. We were talking about the Far Side cartoon. I think Nick, you had mentioned it. The one where there's like a break in the clouds, and the one pilot says to the other, "Hey, I wonder what a mountain goat is doing way up here in the clouds."
Yeah, that is very good.
This one is also another good one. A very large baby on a runway with its arms spread and legs extended, and two pilots sitting on its neck. And the pilots are saying, fuel, check. Lights, check. Oil pressure, check. We've got clearance. Okay, Jack, let's get this baby off the ground. Bam. Yeah, it's a big baby. All right. Thank you guys for that. And I see that we all share the same really weird sense of humor. Number 4, Brett sends this in. APG crew, it's interesting how this lovely story is dated on Valentine's Day. All of us as passengers on a flight have had the occasional crying or anticipated crying baby. In this story, it seems the only noisy person was the passenger that was complaining. I can share one situation from a few years ago. I took my seat on a plane, and when I looked around, there were 5 children that seemed to be less than 5 years old, and I thought I was in for a nightmare of a flight. However, it turned out that these were some of the most well-behaved children around, and we all had a great flight. And he said, enjoy the news below. I've heard that I have heard you share some of your stories of unruly passengers in prior podcasts. Yes, we have. So I think we should start off before we move any further in his feedback by playing this.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do? When Chevy don't come for you.
All right, that's enough of that before YouTube gets upset with me. Let's see. So we had this situation happen, as he said, on Valentine's Day. A passenger was removed from a Delta Airlines flight earlier this month. And by the way, it was not Delta, it was Endeavor Air, which is a connecting carrier for Delta Airlines. A passenger was removed for loudly complaining about having to sit next to an 8-month-old baby. An annoyed passenger was kicked off. Okay. They do it again. They repeat the same dang thing. In the article, Marissa Rundell, a mom from Hammondsport, New York, was seated with her son Mason on a flight scheduled to depart from John F. Kennedy International Airport for Syracuse on February 6th. Oh, wait a minute. It's not Valentine's Day. February 6th. When a woman preparing to take her seat across the aisle began complaining, she came to the back and slammed her bags down. She said, This is effing ridiculous. It's bull something or other, having to sit in the back of the plane. Rundell claims she then asked the woman to watch her language twice and was told to shut the F up and shove it.
Nice lady.
Yeah, very nice. And next, the woman began complaining about being seated close to a crying baby on the plane, although Mason was not crying at the time. Can I sit somewhere else? Mute. Let's see. Can I sit somewhere else? The woman can be heard saying in footage Rundell shared to Facebook. I'm not sitting near a crying baby. Soon afterward, an attendant on the flight, which was operated by Endeavor Air, yay, they put the proper airline name in here finally, tells the woman she can take the next flight if she prefer. I have a little audio from this video if you want to hear it. Let me play that.
He's not going to cry the whole time.
We can put you on the next flight. What? We can put you on the next flight. No, I can't. I'll have to your name? Right here. And your name? Tabitha 976. Thank you, Tabitha. You may not have a job tomorrow. I want this lady. No, I can't. I can't, Tabitha. I have to. I apologize. Please. No, I apologize. All right. I apologize. I have to be in this fight. Thank you, Tabitha. She was screaming at the beginning. I'm not screaming. I'll be quiet now, please. Okay, I'm sorry. I was really stressed out. Please, Tabitha. Thank you.
Well, she said thank you, but they ended up making her get off the flight. I think that she would have been okay, and to the point at which she said to Tabitha, I don't think you're going to have a job anymore, or something to that effect. And then as soon as she finished that sentence, Tabitha said, I don't want this woman on this airplane or on this flight. And that was it. She crossed the line, and there was no going back. And so again, the mother with the young child posted this on Facebook. She said mostly just for her, the people that follow her on Facebook, but somehow the general public caught wind of this, and it kind of blew up. And before you know it, I guess the word got back to this lady's employer. That's the next item here in the feedback. The woman who allegedly screamed at a mother and her baby aboard the Endeavor flight has been suspended from her job with the New York state government. The woman, identified as Susan Perez by Spectrum News, was removed from an Endeavor flight on the 6th of February following an incident just prior to takeoff at JFK. And let's see, state employees are and must be held to the highest standard, both professionally and personally, said Ronnie Reich, a director of public information for the New York State Council of the Arts, where Perez is reportedly employed as a program director. We were notified of the situation and have commenced an investigation. This employee has been removed from the office and placed on leave until further notice and until the inquiry is resolved. So I guess the bottom line is, let's behave and be civil with other folks out there, and also realize that in this day and time, when people have video recorders on their telephones, that you should watch what you're doing, behave so that you don't get ratted out and lose your job potentially. Apparently she's making, somewhere I read that she makes like $95,000 a year as a program director for the Council of the Arts for the state of New York. So what rut-row?
Yeah.
The lady that had the child and kind of, told her to shut her trap and stop swearing, kind of feels bad. She said she had no intent, of this lady losing her job or potentially losing her job. But
what does that have to, or how is she representing the state of New York? That's what I want to know. I mean, she's on the airplane. How does anybody know what you do for a living or who you work for?
I don't know.
I mean, how you act is one thing. If you act a fool, and you act a fool, but why is she losing her job? Because she wasn't representing the state of New York in any way.
I don't know.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's social media being judge and jury and executioner in this case, I think.
Mm-hmm. Of course, at least, she's being placed on leave, so it doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to lose her job, but I'm sure it's, giving her more trouble than she was expecting. But again, she shouldn't have been a rude, to begin with. But again, I agree with you guys, that shouldn't be grounds for losing your job. I mean, she's like this in her job, and they were all going, yes, finally we have something that we can get her fired for.
Well, yeah, but
I don't know.
In a court of law, I don't even know how that would. I mean, I know the court of public opinion. That's one thing. You don't sit there and yell at a child. If I'm sitting in my uniform, and and the kid's kicking the back of my seat, which has happened, I might turn around and say politely, "Hey, excuse me, do you mind probably not doing that?" Or be PC about it. But if you're in uniform, you have to act a certain way, even if you're on the airplane as a non-rev or the airport or anywhere around that type of scenario that they can identify you as an employee, of course. But when you're on a public transit mode of transportation, it has no bearing on your job. And I don't even think in a court of law, if they tried to go after her job, that it would stand up. I think that would be wrongful termination.
Yeah.
I have a problem with her talking to a lady that has a child, but you don't know what happened prior to that, and it's, again, we don't have the full story. So I think that this is an overreaction, of course, as always. So
yeah. Okay. Well, Brett, thanks for sending that in and bringing it to our attention. And I think we all agree. Just behave nicely, but this is perhaps an overreaction by the state of New York. So I think, and I agree with you, Dana, that if she is actually fired, she'll have grounds for a lawsuit, and she'll most likely win it. Cost the state of New York even a lot more than they would have spent otherwise.
Not that we're giving legal advice or trying to weigh in
as
far as that goes. No, we are not lawyers. We're just giving our
free
opinion on
legal
something.
advice, and it's worth exactly how much you're paying for it.
Exactly.
Nothing. All right. Richard says, question regarding a system to share weather info amongst planes. I was fascinated by the mention of the new software that Delta has, where it uses the aircraft's accelerometer system to plot areas of turbulence and then display it on other aircraft equipment. That sounds like such a brilliant system, but at the same time, such an obvious thing to do. And I wonder why other aircraft haven't got this system installed. Maybe it's a cost thing. Why would an airline encourage flight planning to go hundreds of miles out of the way to save flying through a few bumps? Anyway, that got me thinking. Do you or any of your crew know of some sort of system where, for example, I'm going to paint a picture here for you. Jeff is flying his MD-88 towards a thunderstorm from the south. Maybe Dana is flying towards the same storm from the north. Maybe the storm is quite big, so individually you can't see just how big the storm is because your weather radars on their own can't see all the way through it. And then along comes Nick from the east and sees part of the storm on his weather radar. Each aircraft can only see bits of the storm. So my question is there a system that would send all three aircraft weather radar pictures up to the cloud to be downloaded by all the other aircraft to get a nice 3D big picture view of weather and storms in real time? That way, Steph can come along in her Cirrus without a weather radar, but be able to see exactly what's going on and where. Just a thought. If this system doesn't exist, then I copyright it. Haha. Richard. Now, they do have something. Go ahead, Dana.
I was going to say Steph actually has a much better ability in her Cirrus to see weather than we do, because they have the ability to upload NEXRAD radar, which really gives you a nice picture of what's around, where all we have is that very small slice that Richard's talking about. We only have that very little slice, but we now have technology, which I think you're going to just talk about, Jeff, that we have on our Surface, soon to be iPad, that we can also look at. I think that's what you're going to talk about.
Well, I was going to say that just right behind the cockpit door, sitting in rows 1 through 40, are passengers with their electronic devices, and they're tuned into the Wi-Fi system, and they can just go to any of a number of places that display NEXRAD radar in real time. Well, with about a 4 to 5 minute delay, but that bird's eye view is ironically available as long as you're not a pilot in the cockpit of an airplane. So now that is a general that's really applying to the current state of things for our airline. But as Dana just mentioned, we do have the ability now with one of the flight weather viewer apps to get not this exactly the same type of information that you could by going to a NEXRAD site and being able to choose different presentations as far as reflectivity and that kind of thing. But it does give us an idea of where the weather actually is in the tops of the weather, the radar tops of the precipitation returns. And that at least gives us a somewhat accurate view, a bird's eye view of weather systems and how far they extend, etc. And it's just a matter of being able to access the internet via the Wi-Fi system on the airplane. That's basically it. So, yeah,
there is a big problem with trying to get us all to identify the same storm, though, and it's the same problem that military guys encountered, and I have a little bit of experience in this because I spent some time working with British Aerospace on their data linking system that allowed aircraft to input into a huge database where all the aircraft they could see were. So you get a fighter saying, well, I can see these 3 airplanes here, and an AWACS, I can see these 50 airplanes and other. The problem is that each aircraft has got a certain error in its position. They're not all perfectly positioned. Each radar has a slight error built in. And if an aircraft identifies a storm and another aircraft identifies a storm, are they 2 storms or are they the same storm? And until you get a really clever piece of software to work out whether we're seeing a series of small storms in the same area or one big storm, that's where this all breaks down. And the chances of getting all these different airliners and aircraft and data all amalgamated and make it entirely accurate enough for Steph in her Cirrus to accurately avoid it is not as easy as it sounds, is all I'm going to say here.
Well, of course, weather is always changing as well. I mean, if you look at any
airplanes move around faster. That's what
true.
I'm saying.
Yeah, they do, and the viewpoint from each aircraft is different. So,
yeah,
I absolutely agree with each one of you.
Yeah, and then Robert in the chat room is saying, think of the bandwidth and data processing.
That's the other problem. Yeah, unless you've got military funds to go for.
Right. So, right now, the best available, other than the forward-looking radar that we have, which is real-time, the displays that you can find on a number of weather related sites, the NexRad returns, maybe delayed 5 minutes or so, is pretty darn accurate and about as good as you need, I would say. So
yeah, and wouldn't you agree, especially during summertime when you're dealing with a line of thunderstorms or thunderstorms downrange? I mean, it's good to see what's right in front of you real time, and what we can see, the slice of the pie that we can see in our airplane. But really, what I'd like to know is, well, which direction is my best choice of action based on what's ahead of me?
Right.
In the future, 20, 30, 50, 100 miles down the road. So that's where it would be nice to have a high level overview of the NexRad or some type of similar system.
Right, we have tactical information, and it would be really nice to have both tactical and strategic information available.
Yep. Excellent.
All right. Thanks, Richard, for that. Another Richard and Steve say, and they both share the common sentiment, and it involves Captain Nick's crew logs. And again, that is available to you if you support the show financially and become part of the Coffee Fund cadre. Richard writes, "Hi all, have a coffee on me. Please thank Captain Nick for his latest batch of crew logs. They're really interesting. Always remember that boring and routine for you is often fascinating for us mere mortals. It was very interesting to hear Nick going through his Boston trip in such detail. The reasons why certain decisions are made are often as interesting as those decisions themselves. Beating the de-icing countdown, not testing the flaps until the last minute, etc. Keep up the good work." And again, that's Richard Adams. And Stephen writes, "Hi, APG crew. Pleased to have recently become a patron and wanted to say how much I'm enjoying the crew logs, and in particular some of Nick's very insightful logs on life as an airline pilot. 2 logs in particular I enjoyed were Nick's log about his A340 whitetail repositioning flight, and also his Boston trip where he battled with technical issues and the snow on departure. The way Nick walks us through these experiences really gives an enjoying, in-depth look into the life of an airline pilot and allows folk like me to live the life of a pilot vicariously. Great work. Please keep them coming, Steve." So
well, that's very kind of Richard and Steve. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Much appreciated.
Well, you do a great job.
And so do you, Dana, now that you've started putting them out as well. I guess you guys are really setting the bar awfully high. I guess I'm going to have to start trying to up my
game
standard.
Yeah, up your game, up yours. Too.
Exactly. That's the only thing I could think of when I said that.
We've upped our game. You should up yours. Well, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of Captain Nick, and well, this isn't necessarily a crew log, but it's something that many people have said over time and time again how much they enjoy your Plain Tales installments, and I think it would be a good time now for us to do this week's installment, RAF Form 414, Volume 2. Take it away, old pilot.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales, RAF Form 414, Volume 2. We continue with bits from my RAF logbook when on the 12th of December 1977 at RAF Coningsby in Lincolnshire, the English county that saw so many brave boys head off in their Lancasters, Wellingtons, Stirlings and the like during the Second World War, I took my first flight in an F-4 Phantom. It's a particularly flat area of the country, and in December, with a cutting easterly wind, it's so cold it'll freeze the balls off a brass monkey. Now, before anyone gets upset, a brass monkey is a metal plate used aboard an old man of war to stand cannonballs on beside the cannon, and it's made of brass to stop the chance of striking an accidental spark. Iron and brass contract at different rates, so when it gets cold, the brass plate can shrink until the balls fall off. I joined number 228 Operational Conversion Unit on Air Defence Long Course number 14. But before I was given the chance to clamber up into the lofty perch that was the cockpit of the Phantom, there was a great deal of ground training and simulators to get through. We sat in classrooms watching technicians in old brown coats chalk up diagrams on the blackboards, or, if we were lucky, use one of those newfangled overhead projectors. The simulator was bolted to the floor, and before we got to use it, the tiny camera that was guided around a model landscape to simulate low flying was disabled. When the Phantom's role changed to purely air defence, sadly, such fun kit was not required. Eventually, when we knew our way around the simulator well enough and had studied the intricacies of air-blown flaps and slats, etc., we got our chance to fly. I have mentioned the kind and patient instructor I had, Roy Lawrence, in the previous logbook tale, and how he dispatched a friendly Jaguar with a sidewinder, but that was yet to come. Roy had other problems this day, namely me. I wish I could remember more of this momentous occasion, the day we kitted up in our long johns, G-suits, acrylamp pile bunny suits, immersion suits with rubber seals on wrists and neck, boots, silk glove inners, immersion gloves on top, helmet and harness, and waddled out to X-Ray Victor 396, sitting quietly on the line. Standing beside the 20-ton monster, Roy took me round, showing me where the gauges were for the emergency flap, rat, gear and brakes, pressure between 2,000 and 3,100 psi. We checked the static vents were clear, that the radome was shut and locked. The intakes were clear. The hydraulic PC 1 and 2 accumulator gauges were 1,000 plus or minus 50 psi, and that the auxiliary air doors were open with secure linkages. We checked the pitot covers were removed and that the brake chute door was closed properly with a telltale flag to show that there was really a chute in there. I expect I looked a bit overawed as it came time to clamber up and get in. Roy would have climbed up the nav's ladder, one of which, I might add, would also serve as the ladder for Luke Skywalker's X-Wing in the first Star Wars movie, into the back seat and started trying to erect his inertial navigation system. I would dutifully be working around my ejector seat, checking the pins, latches, banana links, cables, rods, guards, and dialing my weight into the pitch control unit, plus the other intricacies of that explosive chair, before sitting down to strap in. Luckily, we had a see-off crew to help hand us the straps and to remove the top pin of the seat that we couldn't reach. With my helmet pigtail plugged in, I could speak to Roy, who chatted away in his calming QFI way as I worked round the cockpit, doing everything from memory as I had learned to do in the simulator. Then came the time to wind up the pair of mighty Rolls-Royce spays that we sat wedged in between, so close that Roy's elbows would have rested on top of the intakes. With a confidence I probably didn't feel, I would have given the ground crew a wind-up signal by twirling a digit in the air, and after checking in front and behind, they would return the signal. Both engine masters on, then the right start switch to on, checking that the LP shaft started rotating immediately. That done, I would click the throttle through the HP fuel cock gate to idle and wait. Oil pressure rising, starter clicks off, check hydraulics and pneumatic pressures, nozzle below 1/4 open, right generator on and buzz tie closed. With both engines running, the aircraft on internal power and everything humming along, it would be time for the functional checks. Speed brake cycle, flaps down and back to half, trims check and set 2 degrees nose down. Stab org switches on, check the autopilot and paddle switch, stab orgs off. Then it was time to wave the chocks and call for taxi. Roy started off, but once we were underway, he gave me control and I tried to steer the beast. We drove it around using the rudder pedals that were linked to the nosewheel steering once a red button on the stick was held down. It was certainly easier than the Hunter, which relied on differential brakes, operated by dabbing a bicycle brake lever on the back of the stick while the rudder was held to one side or the other. This was like steering a Cadillac. Lined up on the end of the runway, with the stick held firmly back against the stops, I did the final checks. Pitot heat on, flaps halved, stab orgs engaged. Anti-skid on, caption out, engine checks within limits, warnings out, ramps retracted, and release the brakes, powering up to full military. Clicking the throttles outboard, I pushed them further forward to full reheat and felt the huge surge of thrust push me back into the ejector seat. The noise was incredible. The runway edges became a blur, and as the nose started to rise, I checked slightly, but we were already in the air. Gear, then flaps, Roy shouted, before we overstressed them as we accelerated away. I was riding a high of adrenaline, and my grin was so wide it risked creeping out of the confines of my oxygen mask. Those first 3 trips went by in a blur of activity, and with only 4 hours 15 minutes, Roy stepped aside and the brave navigator, Flight Lieutenant Hurst, took his place in the back seat for my first trip as a proper Phantom pilot. 2 flights later, it was my course colleague, Brian B.K. Hinton, student navigator extraordinaire, who climbed into the back seat for our first student cruise solo, where we did our best to terrify ourselves being without adult supervision. 4 trips later, I had an instrument rating, and the conversion part of the course was more or less over. Now we had to go to work. Work meant learning the basics of intercepts. BK and I tried to understand how the Phantom radar display worked. It wasn't an A scope. That's a simple line like an oscilloscope. It wasn't a C scope. That's like the display of an old air traffic radar, with the antenna in the middle of a circle and the radiating beam rotating round, showing range and azimuth. It was something in between. Our radar swung back and forth, 60 left, 60 right. So it was like a segment of an air trafficker C-scope, a bit like a large pizza slice. The drawback of that pizza slice C-scope display was that as a target came close, it would have slid down into that cramped corner at the bottom of the display and would be really difficult to accurately read range and bearing. The cure was to electronically manipulate and distort the display so that the bottom of the scope was as broad as the top. This was called a B-scope, and it meant that the pie-shaped scan now looked like a square. However, in curing one problem, another was created. A target coming straight down the scope directly at us on a collision course holds a constant bearing. This is easy to see on a C-scope as the blip moves in a direct line heading for the center of the display. If it's going to miss you, its blip track doesn't point directly at you, but slightly to one side. On a B-scope, an aircraft on a collision with, say, a 90-degree heading difference, so I'm heading north and he's, say, heading west, will come down a line around 45 degrees to the right of the scope center line. He'll look like he's going to miss since he's a long way from the center of the display, but, and it's a big but, because of the way the display is distorted to get more detail, we are now the whole bottom of the display, and anything that comes straight down is going to smack us straight in the face. Target that's going to cross ahead or behind will come down in a curved path, a bit like a hockey stick. Straight at first, but slowly as it gets closer, it will diverge slightly before, at the last minute, diving off the side of the display. Hard enough for me to explain, and even harder for us as students to understand. BK and I spent evening after evening memorizing blip tracks and collision paths so that we could understand where to put our aircraft to get onto the ideal approach path, hit the key point, and then conduct a controlled turn to roll out directly behind our target at 1 mile. We did it first on paper, then on bicycles pedaling at each other, then on the mechanical monster that was the air intercept trainer, and finally in the aircraft. The only real aids we had were the radar and a compass. The only variables were our heading and our airspeed. For the navs, this was the hardest part of the course, and far from the most exciting. The hard bit for the pilots was air combat training. At last, we were allowed to bunt and stunt our meaty monsters. The setups were canned, and we started in the rear quarter of our adversary in a position to attack and told to close for a missile shot. When we commenced, our target would turn into us, and it was up to us to maneuver around them to get that shot, or perhaps close to guns range. This would involve magical maneuvers such as the yo-yo, both high and low. The low yo-yo we performed by flying down and to the outside of our target circular path, gaining energy so that we might pull up into a high yo-yo to reduce the corner velocity and turn hard in behind. Our cooperative targets started just by flying in a circle, but soon they were allowed to reverse and fight properly, and a full dogfight would ensue. Of course, our opponents were usually instructors, even godlike qualified weapons instructors, so for us to get a shot off usually meant them fighting well below their ability level. After all, we were still trying to learn. Whilst the pilots were yanking and banking, the navs were breaking their necks trying to keep sight of the bogey when it went behind the wing line, learning how to call our eyes on, or if necessary, verbally taking control of the aircraft by talking to us. They would tell us to roll until the bogey was on the center line of the canopy, and then pull until it ran down the canopy and magically appeared in the windscreen. We slowly progressed, ticking each exercise off in turn, punctuated by the odd problem. On trip AD3, that was Air Defense Trip 3, the weather closed in, so BK and I diverted to Colchester, and on AD22 we limped home with a generator failure. Around Christmas, the first Star Wars movie came out, and the whole student course went en masse to see it. We all loved it, since it seemed to be entirely about fighter pilots and their robotic backseaters, albeit in the wrong century. From then on, most of our navs got the nickname R2-D2. The course was also interrupted by a war exercise called a TACEVAL, a tactical evaluation. All the OCU staff reverted to a war footing, which left us, unqualified students, with nothing much to do. Of course, the RAF hates people who sit around in the mess drinking beer, so we were immediately drafted as guards and told to march around the perimeter of the airfield in the dark, freezing, and soggy weather of a Lincolnshire winter. In peacetime, there were never enough guns to go around, so we usually got pickaxe handles and spent several miserable nights getting trench foot and frostbite. On our course, there were a couple of squadron leaders, old hands from the Lightning Force, who were being retrained on a decent fighter. I'll never forget seeing the man I was to go to my first squadron with, Harry McLean, sitting atop a guard tower in the pouring rain under a poncho, emitting a constant stream of swear words about the bloody Air Force that only a true Scotsman would know. All went well until some overeager territorial army bods arrived at the perimeter to storm the airfield. Faced with a young sprog like me, wielding a bit of wood and shouting "bang, bang" didn't have the desired effect, and before I knew it, I was face down in the mud with a boot on the back of my head. By the end of March, the course was over, and I had my posting, number 43 Squadron, the Fighting Cocks. So I girded my loins, took my 63 hours and 15 minutes of total phantom experience, and pointed my rattly old car northwards. But that's another story.
Another well-told story.
Well, thank you, Jeff.
Sorry. I was indisposed, and I was listening over the speaker system, and I thought, oh, heck, he's wrapping it up. I need to hurry up to get back.
Well, I must admit, I had a busy week, and I didn't have an awful lot of time, so that was a little shorter than normal.
Yes, it was. I should have known that. I have the length of it right in front of me, and I thought, it looks like I have time to use the toilet.
Twice?
Apparently
or three
not.
times?
Well, I didn't make the decision to do it until the last third of your plane tale, and I'm in there washing my hands, and I'm thinking, oh, I hear music.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. Anyway, you have so much experience that you can tell, and I'm thinking perhaps, how do you feel about writing? You ever thought about writing some books?
Yeah, kind of, but I think that would be quite hard work, because I think you can get away with a lot more when you're telling a story. When you're writing a book, you have to be pretty precise, and you have to have a real flair for it. So I don't know if I'd be able to do that.
Well, I think what you're doing with your talent right now is awesome. So thanks again for taking the time to do these every week. I think that for many, it's the highlight of the show.
I think you are, Jeff. After all, you're our host.
No.
Very kind of you.
I'm just here, just kind of pushing the buttons, and sometimes getting it right, and sometimes not. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's see. I think we can continue now with some more feedback. Tim Van Ram, you ever heard of that guy?
Yeah, nice guy.
Very nice, in Northern California. He sent us this. Now, I'm sure that everybody in the world heard about the terrible school shooting in Parkland, Florida, outside of Fort Lauderdale. Tim writes to say, Captain Jeff, sad but touching story about colleagues showing up for the funeral of a victim of the Parkland shooting whose dad is a United captain. So a United captain lost his daughter to the school massacre. And he has a link here to the CNN article and a very sobering picture of the many, I don't know how many are there, probably 40, 50 pilots wearing their, and flight attendants wearing their uniforms. Let's see, let me read the article. United Airlines captain Tony Minalto and his family held a funeral for their daughter Gina Rose on Tuesday at Mary Help of Christians Church in Parkland. Employees, did I mispronounce his name? Montalto. Okay, there we go. Employees from multiple divisions of United, JetBlue, Spirit, American Airlines, and FedEx attended to honor the young girl's life. Lined up together in uniform, the pilots created an image of true solidarity. According to United Airlines spokeswoman Maggie Schmerin, this is a beautiful example of how the United family supports one another. The heartwarming moment was captured by United Captain Dan Petrovich, who works alongside Gina's father. There were no specific plans for what we did. It just happened out of love and respect for the suffering of a member of our United and Aviation family, he told CNN. 14-year-old Gina was a member of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School's Winter Guard on the marching band. She was described as sweet and artistic by those who were close to her. So our thoughts and prayers go with Tony Montalto and his family, his daughter and daughter's friends.
Absolutely.
And continuing on to a lighter subject, Lucas the Flying Kiwi sent us in some audio feedback. Let's take a listen.
Hey guys, it's the Flying Kiwi here. Just listening to 312 and just have a bit of a comment for the guy who talked about doing visual approaches in a PC sim. I'm a PC simmer from way back because I've always loved airplanes, and even from Flight Simulator 1, which was awful, I was doing PC simming. I use it these days to do instrument approaches because I had a rush of blood to the head and decided to get a private instrument rating, which I'm sort of still lumbering on with, haven't completed it. But it's fun, and if I haven't been in an aircraft in a while, I do a circuit in a sim and just sort of remind myself where my feet are. If you guys are absolutely right when you talk about using the aids, absolutely. If you're flying visual, you're still using VOR and DME. DME, which is the distance measuring equipment, is very important even for visual approaches because even when you're eyeballing it, a lot of people have GPS these days, but the DME is great because it'll tell you, you are 5 miles or 7 miles from the station. I would have a look at the approach plates for the particular airport that you want to sim on. Most of the instrument approach plates are gobbledygook, and I totally realize that. However, most of them have a profile picture. And why this is quite useful for a visual approach is if you're like me and your descent management is quite, well, pants, really, and terrible. My descent management is terrible. It's a great aid to tell you what height you should be at what DME distance from the airport. And even if you're not chasing the glide slope or not using the glide slope, it's a really good aid to say, 12 miles out, you need to be at 4,000 feet and no greater than 170 KIAS. That's a great cue for you to say, at 12 miles, I need to be this high and this fast. And that really helps my visual approaches when I'm doing stuff in the sim. Obviously, when I'm up in the little real planes, I'm using the eyeball and just what I know of the airfield. But it's a great aid. In fact, I actually use flight sim if I'm going to do a cross country to somewhere I've never been before. I actually usually go up and do a cross country flight to the airfield just to improve my situational awareness, actually, of how far to the coast it is and where the nearest town is in relation to the airport. because I had a horrible experience once of flying over a place called Hamner Springs and not being able to find the airport until a helpful chap on frequency pointed me in the right direction. So every now and again, I jump on that to do a quick reference check. But have a look at the approach, have a look at the DME and the height settings. Ignore all the rest of the stuff, DH, decision heights, and all that sort of crap. You don't need to worry about that. Just look at the DME and the height, and then you'll know how far from the airport and how high you should be at that point. And of course, when you get to about 3,000 feet and you're on profile, the rest is just eyeballing and away you go. So yeah, just remember your feet and remember your throttles. Anyway, that's a little bit of helpful sim tips from me. Flying Kiwi's out. Talons, Douglas.
Thank you, Lucas. Flying Kiwi, for some great tips for the person looking for advice on how to fly a visual approach on their PC sim software.
Yeah, I knew someone out there would know how to do it properly.
Yeah, that was great compared to what we were able to give them last week.
Well, I think we got pretty close.
Yeah, pretty close.
Not quite 50%.
Yeah, quite. Well, we're always shooting for that.
Yep.
We on a previous show, we also talked about the Aviation 62, may have been the last show, Lady Agnes, and the clip from YouTube. Did you guys get a chance? Well, I know that Nick, you did.
Yep.
Dana, did you see it too?
I did not.
Okay. It's crazy. You really need to watch it. So Tillman says, here's some voice feedback with more information about the Aviation 62 that landed in a cloud of dust on a grass strip in the middle of nowhere in East Germany. All the best. And he also included some photos. And I'm looking for the audio feedback, voice feedback. I don't see it here in the note. I think my show prep didn't work so great. So we'll cut all this out. Going to my email to see if I can figure out what happened to it. Usually it puts it right in the note itself in Evernote. And I'm going to put in Tillman search. That's the wrong keyboard, Jeff. Am I still on the air?
Yes, afraid so.
Yes,
it's very, very quiet. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm not on the air anymore. Okay, he said he sent me some voice. Oh, there it is. I don't know why it didn't show up in the Evernote note. All right, it's downloading. And here it is. And I'll drag it over to Evernote. And let's all listen together.
Greetings, APG crew. This is Private Pilot Tillman from Berlin, Germany, and I have some more information about the Aviation 62 that landed on the grass strip in 1989. It is only about 20 minutes as the Piper flies away from me, and I have visited the Lady Agnes more than once. The small village of Stölln has an active soaring community. It is their grass strip that the large Russian-made jet landed on. The story is quite entertaining and would probably even make for a good Plain Tales episode. The Aviation 62, or VC Tensky as Nick says, had been an important part of the long-haul fleet of the East German flag carrier Interflug. In the late 1980s, the four-engine jets were aging, and the oldest ones were approaching their life cycle limitation of 7,900 landings. Instead of paying for scrapping the old airframes, some smart person at Interflug came up with the plan to donate the airplanes to museums and parks around the country. That is how the idea was born to bring the jetliner to the tiny town of Stölln, which is arguably the oldest airport in the world. After all, it was here that Otto Lilienthal had his first sustained and controlled flights, during which he took off, maneuvered, and landed again at the same spot, And by my definition, that makes this spot an airport. The chief pilot of the IL-62 fleet at Interflug, a gentleman named Heinz-Dieter Kalbach, was intrigued by the idea. So him and an enthusiastic team of Interflug pilots and flight engineers were trying to find a solution for over a year before they finally developed a possible scenario. The aircraft in question was going to be an IL-62 with the registration Delta Delta Romeo Sierra Echo Golf. It needed to be put on quite an extensive diet before an attempt could be made to land the airplane on the very short grass strip. So the cabin was stripped of all seats and everything else that they didn't need for the flight. And all other non-essential equipment was thrown out, even including the APU. Then they developed a special landing technique, and several trial runs were made before the actual landing was performed in Stölln on October 23rd of 1989. That was only days before the wall came down. The flight and the landing itself worked remarkably well. The only thing that nobody really thought about was how much dust the reversers were going to kick up from the dry grass strip. So the whole airplane was basically covered in a cloud of thick dust. That is what is also seen on the video, what looks quite remarkable. But once the dust had settled, Kalbach and his crew climbed out of the jet and were greeted by a cheering crowd. Kalbach is still a very well-known aviator in Germany. He continued with a pretty long and successful career in the reunited Germany, and he flew for many more years commercially. He once even fought off a hijacking attempt during which he was injured quite heavily and still managed to land his aircraft safely. After his commercial career, he became first pilot and later instructor on the DC-3 that performed commemorative flights for the Berlin airlift. His IL-62 Sierra Echo Golf is still in Stölln, and it can be visited. So if any of you in the APG community are ever up for a little excursion to the middle of nowhere in Brandenburg, let me know. I'll be happy to show you around.
Excellent.
Very good.
Will they be playing the Brandenburg Concerto in the background?
Maybe loud and clear.
Didn't quite hear that. I can't do a play tell now because Tillman's just done one. That was brilliant. I thought that was fantastic, Tillman. Great story.
Right. And Jeff, I stand corrected. I did actually see the video on this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they did a couple of little flybys and then landed and kicked up a lot of dust and almost like they was bouncing in a very short field landing. I did see it. It was very interesting. I had to watch it a couple times.
Less than 3,000 feet of grass runway.
Yeah, that takes some doing.
Yeah. Some mad skills, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I like the way they now use it as an awning for a cafe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you were able to see some of those pictures that Tillman sent us?
Yeah, I can see them all.
Awesome. I'll put that in the show notes so you, dear listener, can look at them as well in your leisure. Thanks, Tillman. Liz sent in some feedback regarding, well, let me just read the headline here. Model brings emotional support casserole on American Airlines flight. Are you familiar with the term casserole, Nick? Is that something that...
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yes,
Okay.
a meat dish in a casserole dish.
There you go.
Meat, what would you call it? Stew in a casserole dish, yes.
Yeah, I guess in America they have, it can be a meat dish, it can be a vegetable mix. It's usually like a whole bunch of ingredients all put together and baked in a casserole dish. Anyway, remember the model Chrissy Teigen? She's the one who tweeted about the 8-hour ANA flight from Los Angeles to, it says to Angeles. That's not right. or maybe it is. Maybe Angeles City in the Philippines last December. And remember, there was a stowaway aboard the flight, and then they had to return, I believe, back to Los Angeles. Anyway, she's a prolific traveler, very well versed in the nuances of airline loyalty and premium cabins. Now she has waded into the emotional support debate. She took to Twitter to ask American Airlines, if I don't have a carry-on, can I bring a large ceramic casserole dish of scalloped potatoes in the plane? I'm not kidding. Is this okay? Is it too blunt or heavy an object? I'll cry if they throw it away. 3 minutes later, she asked American Airlines to confirm. A conversation with American ensued, and Tegan referred to her potato dish as an emotional support casserole. And then there's the exchange, the Twitter exchange. Let's see. They say, American, we're here for you. Please send a DM, a direct message, our way and let us know what we can do. Christine says, I would like to bring my emotional support casserole on my flight today. American says, you're welcome to bring an additional bag of food with you on board. Please double check with our friends. Ask TSA. Christine, it's not a bag, it's a casserole. American, that's okay. As long as our friends at Ask TSA let it through security, you can take it on board with you. Christine finally says, thank you. So she got it to work, apparently. Conclusion, whether she knows it or not, and I suspect she does, and this is her intent, Tegan has added fuel to the flame of the emotional support animal debate. Her humor exposes the absurdity of the current policy and once again illustrates the need to revisit the oft-abused rules governing these sorts of pets, which should never be confused with true service animals. And that, if you're wondering, was an article from Live and Let's Fly .boardingarea.com, as best I can tell. Thank you, Liz. I'm glad that they let her have her emotional support casserole.
Well, it achieved the desired result for her. She got publicity. So there you go.
Yes, she did. Let's see. Oh, we have some feedback. How long have we been going here? 2
hours and 45 minutes or so.
Okay. I think we have time to do at least one or two more.
Yeah.
This is from Roger, Radio Roger Stern. He says, hi, Jeff. I don't expect you to put this on the air because it's probably of limited interest to your audience. In fact, I'll be submitting audio feedback on a different subject, which will be targeted to your podcast. But I just wanted to let you and Nick know that I took my first flying lesson. Well, you know what? After reading this, I decided, and I wrote back to Roger, I think that indeed people listening to the show will appreciate this. So he continues, it was a birthday gift from my family, and for a lot of reasons, it will probably be a one-off. However, it was terrific. We took off in a Cirrus SR-20 from Westchester County White Plains Airport, Hotel Papa November. And when we climbed to 3,500 feet, the instructor handed over the controls and gave me a set of headings to steer for. I got the hang of it pretty quickly, though at first I was not great at maintaining my altitude. As the lesson went on, I developed a better sense of when to look for visual clues outside the cockpit, when to consult my instruments. I thought I would hate the side stick, more accurately a side yoke, because this is not fly-by-wire, but it was okay, and I liked having a clean view of the display. Let me read that again. But it was okay, and I liked having a clean view of the display. Knowing that the instructor was handling navigation, radio transmissions, and looking out for other aircraft, I'm well aware that I was carrying out just a small part of a pilot's duties. That part was humbling. Still, it was a great experience, and I can understand why you and your fellow pilots love doing this for a living. And again, that was Radio Roger. And then, as he mentioned in this last piece of feedback, he was going to send us some audio feedback. And take it away, Radio Roger.
Well, greetings, airline pilot crew. This is Roger Stern, a.k.a. Radio Roger. I wanted to tell you about an unusual experience taking a round trip from New York JFK to West Palm Beach on JetBlue. We arrived at 11 p.m. I was seated maybe 3/4 of the way back, And by the time I got to the front of the plane to make my exit, I noticed that the captain and first officer were nowhere to be seen. The lights were off in the flight deck, and there was just a flight attendant to bid us goodbye. The two pilots had up and left ahead of some of their passengers. I thought this might be a one-off, but on my return flight, the same thing happened. I contacted JetBlue on Facebook, and their answer was that the flight crew must have been rushing to another assignment. I wrote back to say that's ridiculous because one of my flights was the last one of the day. I was actually a little miffed. I always make a point of saying hello to the pilots and found it rude that they couldn't be bothered to stick around. Nick, I remember you saying that as a matter of safety, on Acme Red, you're required to remain on board until all the passengers are off. I want to know what you as pilots think about this practice. I'm probably alone. Most of my fellow passengers couldn't care less, but I think having pilots greet their customers is a tradition worth preserving. This is Radio Roger, over and out.
Well, Radio Roger, I believe that everybody here on the APG crew would agree with you that if it's not a requirement, it should be, and for many of it's a policy for us to stay on the airplane and say goodbye to the passengers unless there's a good reason to leave. There are cases when, especially when we're flying in and out of hub airports such as Atlanta International, where we might be coming in a little bit delayed and the next flight leaves in 20, 25 minutes. And so we need to really be on our way and doing our pre-flight procedures and inspections on the next flight. So, as I mentioned before on this show, what I'll do in that case is I'll just pick up the PA and say, hey, folks, normally we'd be here to say goodbye. We just wanted to, again, thank you for flying with us today, but we have a short turnaround and we have to get to the next gate to prepare the next flight. And, I think that's, the least we can do. And but you make a good point about, the requirement to maintain or stay on board, especially the captain. And Nick, is that indeed a requirement for your company?
Well, that's as I was told when I did my captain's course. That was quite a few years ago now, but I was told that the captain was legally obliged to remain on the aircraft until the last of the passengers had disembarked, and that wasn't a company requirement. That is a legal requirement for air transport pilots. So that I've always treated it as such, and I always think it's just imagine the situation where you have strolled off an aircraft, usually with the APU burning, and the engineers haven't yet come up. And there's no one really responsible, and then you get a fire warning, say, in the flight deck. No one there to hear it, no one there to tell whoever's left on the aircraft that an emergency has happened and it's now required to make an emergency disembarkation. I mean, you may have people who need to go down the slides. You may have people on board who are wheelchair passengers and would need great assistance getting off the aircraft in a hurry. I think it's personally irresponsible of the flight deck crew to leave before the last of their charges, their passengers, are off.
I don't know if it's a legal requirement as far as our regulations are concerned in the United States. I don't believe so because nobody's ever said anything to me about that. But I guess it's kind of a traditional thing, held over from, the ships and ships captains. What do they always say? The captain should be at least the last one to leave the ship. But I do know, pardon me?
Or go down with the ship.
Go down. Yeah, go down with the ship. Now, I do know, though, that it is a policy at Acme that, again, as I mentioned before, that we have to stay and say goodbye. And, I say have to. I guess a lot of pilots kind of treat that as a have to. They really don't want to. They want to get out of there as soon as they can, especially if it's their last leg of the trip. They want to get, on the bus to the parking lot, in their car on the way home and, carry on with their lives. But it really doesn't take that much extra time to say goodbye to everybody. And then it also has a practical purpose, as you mentioned, Nick, leaving the airplane. There might be a reason for you to be there. And I experienced this last year. I was on the airplane. Actually, no, the previous crew had left the airplane and I went on, and we were the next crew to take the jet out, and they were still deplaning, and I didn't realize they were still deplaning. I think they were waiting for a couple of the passengers. They requested wheelchairs, and they were waiting for some wheelchairs to get down to the jet. And so I went on and just talked to the flight attendants that had brought the airplane in, and I think one of the passengers that was requesting a wheelchair was attempting to make their way up the aisle toward the front of the airplane to make it faster. That when the wheelchair finally arrived, and this person slipped. I guess they were putting their weight on one of the armrests and had slipped, fell down, and had caught the armrest with their face on the way down, and they were bleeding all over the place. And the flight attendant looked at me and says, can you go call somebody, get somebody, some kind of a medic or whatever, because this passenger is having a problem. She's like, I can't get off the airplane. And that is the case, that they have a rule that says that if there are passengers still on the airplane, they are not allowed to leave the airplane. And so I'm thinking, good thing I was there. So I did, got to the phone and went up to the, after I made a call, I guess on the radio I did first. I called the ramp tower and said, we need a paramedic at this gate immediately. And then I ran up to the gatehouse and talked to the gate agent, and she called somebody as well. But I'm thinking, what if I hadn't been there? And I guess that flight attendant probably would have broken the rule and, got off the airplane and made a call on the phone at the jetway. But anyway, that just kind of, what is the word I'm looking for? Man, I need to.
Sound like me now.
I know. That just, re-emphasized to me the importance of staying on the airplane until the last passenger is off, because like, what if you're in one of those situations? I don't know how you feel about this, Dana.
Well, honestly, and I'm gonna say this up front, I truly believe in exactly what you guys have just both said. I think realistically, we are in the passenger service business. We don't fly boxes around, so we need to recognize the people as they get off the aircraft and thank them for their business. That's what differentiates us from everybody else. I mean, we wear a uniform for a reason. The distinguished uniform that we do wear is a reason for it, because they want us to be seen and they want us to represent the company and the product and the brand that we represent at Acme. But and that's how I honestly feel. I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a minute, because I think we need an opposing view here. And there are other scenarios and circumstances in which there are times, as you mentioned, Jeff, a couple of them, but there are personal issues that come about. People, we don't know, like that JetBlue flight. We don't know how many legs that JetBlue crew flew. You don't know how many. I personally, I know a buddy of mine that lives in New Hampshire and drives all the way down to New York to, because that's where he's based. So when he's done with his flying, the first thing he's doing is getting in the car and driving 4 hours home after he flew all day. So I'm not defending anybody, but I'm saying there are other situations beyond which are readily apparent to passengers as to the reason why crew members would not necessarily be there.
Okay, so how much longer would it take for you to stay until everybody was off the airplane?
Probably another 5 minutes, maybe. I mean, that's
5, 10, 15 minutes.
5, 10,
really?
15
That's
minutes.
going to make a difference in, your long day and driving home to New Hampshire. I say, where's the BS flag? You're going to wave that again. That's,
well,
come on.
Everybody has their individual motivations. That's all I'm trying to say. And
that doesn't make it right, though.
It doesn't make it right. I'm just throwing it out there that there's another school of thought by some people out there. It's not how I think. I always make sure before I leave, the captain will say, Captain, you can leave, and I'll take care of everything, or vice versa. He'll say, you go ahead, I've got everything. So, I'm of the thought that there should always be one of us.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be both of us. In fact, a lot of the times, if I'm flying with somebody that has to, a lot of the times I don't go to the parking lot. I take Marta home, and so I know it's going to be easy, and the trains run every 10 to 15 minutes. And I tell the person that I'm flying with, if you're going out to the parking lot, or if you're, need to commute home on a different flight, you're more than welcome to leave whenever there's a break. in the flow of passengers getting off the airplane. And, I have no problem with that at all. But when both, and I'm seeing this more and more and more at our company, Dana, and it just, as you
It's
know,
irritating.
it just really frustrates me because it doesn't take that much time and effort to sit and, or not sit, but stand and say goodbye to our customers as they're leaving. And it really, for them, it really makes a big difference.
Ooh, Jeff's pet peeve.
So,
so and you mentioned 10, 15 minutes. What happens if both pilots? And I'm throwing a wrench into the mix here again. But what happens if it's the difference between both pilots getting home on a commute versus
then
being
that's
stuck
a
there
reason.
another night?
That's a legitimate reason.
That's a legitimate reason. So that's all I'm saying.
But I'm telling
There
you
are
that most of the time that's not the case. These are guys that live in Atlanta, and are just going to their car to drive home. And I'm thinking, really? Come on.
Yeah.
Just stay a little bit longer. In fact, by the way, look it up in the flight operations manual and you'll see that requirement is still there. But there's a requirement for everybody to wear their hats and do all these other things as well. And, some people are just like they're at a cafeteria. They decide which rules they want to, adhere to and which ones they don't like. And so they're not going to follow.
Well, and then you can get the philosophical difference between some former red people versus blue people, so that's where a lot of that comes from too. So I think that the South people, for the most part, pilots, are very much the thinking that you and I have, whereas some of the other people that I've got a few friends there, I'm getting off the airplane as fast as I can. I'm doing nothing extra, blah, blah, blah. So, it really comes down to personal choice, but your personal choice is to violate the company policy.
Right.
And you get, you don't know who's on your airplane. They don't come up to the flight deck and say, hey, you've got so-and-so from the company on the airplane, or this person, or that person. So you never know who's going to be in the back of the airplane. That might make a difference in what the person says when they get off the aircraft and what their experience was. There's it makes a difference. So.
Yeah, and those what do they call those net responder scores or whatever? Those, we have people all the time asking for people to complete surveys and let us know how we did and that kind of thing. And they tell us, we get the communications through flight operations, that guys and gals out there, a big part of us getting a big score from the consumer is you actually staying and saying goodbye to them as you're leaving the airplane. I mean, it really does. It seems silly to us, but it's not. It really makes a big impression for the passenger.
Yeah,
and
sure.
That, not to mention the practical aspects of it, as Captain Nick touched upon. So,
well, of course, they want to find out if you flew for the Navy.
Yeah, I always love that.
Did you fly for the Navy? No, I'm a civilian guy. Oh, it couldn't tell any difference.
Yeah. So if you to translate what Dana's saying, and you probably have picked it up, if you come in and land and you're really praying the thing on, they always kind of like to joke around. Navy pilot, huh? Because of landing on an aircraft carrier, and not really flaring. And anyway, we just love that. That never gets old, does it, Dana?
No, well, the last one was, it was an absolutely picture perfect landing, smooth as glass. Came to a nice stop, taxiing. Hey, you in the Navy or what? I'm like, are you kidding me, dude?
Really?
Are you kidding me? It doesn't come any better than that. Really?
You're just not appreciated, Dana.
Sometimes you just gotta get a chuckle. You gotta chuckle.
I know. All right, and I think we have time for just one more. Some audio feedback from Brian. Take it away, Brian.
Question for you, Nick. In episode 311, you described.
Oh, wait a minute. It's for Nick.
Should we continue?
We're done.
Say something.
Okay, here we go.
Flying down to Barbados with a sore back and an onset of a cold, and really were pulling at my heartstrings for some sympathy, so much so I think I heard some weeping violins coming through the podcast. I'm just kidding. But actually, the question I had for you, you went down to Barbados, you turned around in the airport, and came back a couple hours later. And on the flight home, in your situation, do you have access to the crew rest quarters? I figured you'd be in uniform, and I was wondering what the policy was there, or is it just for active duty personnel that are flying that flight home? thank you so much for the plain tales and the discussion, and really appreciate your sense of humor in the podcast. Thanks, Brian from Des Moines. Bye.
Thanks, Brian from Des Moines. And that is a good question. What's your answer, sir?
There wasn't any crew rest on the aircraft. It was an A330. We don't have crew rest on our 330s. But technically speaking, if it was a 340 and we had crew rest, then the captain, if his crew isn't using it, is allowed to offer it to deadheading crew members. So if the captain had said yes, I could have legally used it to rest in. But as it turned out, I had a flat bed, albeit it's not quite big enough for a large chap. But no, in theory, I could have done yes.
Okay, that's good.
And that would have been very pleasant because it's a bit bigger and it's nice to stretch out and it's quieter and you don't have other snoring people around you. Although, to be absolutely fair, the cabin crew like to sneak in there if the pilots aren't using it. So it may not have been very popular with the cabin crew.
Yeah, you gotta be careful there.
Now, can I ask you a related question? And you'll like this question. Well, actually, Jeff will like this question because.
So I'm not going to like this question.
Well, it depends on whether you can or cannot. But when you're deadheading out of uniform, and you're obviously deadheading like tonight, where when you get back to London, you'll be a turkey. You can't go fly. Are you allowed to have an alcoholic beverage on the aircraft?
Oh, once the door's closed, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh, it's no problem at all. Yeah. If you're considered available to be dragged off the airplane. In fact, the company, they don't have a specific rule for it, but what they say is what we'd like you to do is, particularly if the aircraft is one that you are qualified to fly, that you don't indulge until the doors are closed and basically the aircraft's buttoned up, ready to go, because they're unlikely to call on you then, perhaps to fill in on the flight deck. Yeah, and it's not written in stone, but it's certainly heavily hinted at. Up to that point, you really don't, and I wouldn't, because quite honestly, I'm as keen to get home as anyone. And if one of the pilots fell over not well, just before about to depart, and the captain said, "God, we haven't got any deadheading crew on, have we?" I would be as keen to get home as anyone. So I'm not personally tonight. I'm not going to indulge until I'm, on the aircraft and we're, airborne, and then I might have a few glasses of wine with my meal. That'll be lovely.
Few is like 5 or more.
Oh yeah, a few bottles, a few bottles of wine. Yeah,
they'll just drop off the bottle.
Yeah, if we're deadheading in on the flight deck, then you're not allowed to drink. No alcohol on the flight deck.
Yeah, I was this actually got me once, and I think I've told this story before, and I'm hoping that, remember, I fly for Acme Airlines. I was I had the jump seat going out to LA because I was going out to California a lot to visit my mom before she passed. And I was up there, and the flight attendant came up and she goes, "We got a lot of seats in the back. In fact, I think there's some, Comfort Plus or whatever Acme calls the seats between business class and regular economy." And so I looked at the captain and I said, "Would it be okay with you?" Of course, the obvious answer is, of course, anytime anybody's going to leave your cockpit and not be, staring over your shoulder for an entire flight, you're going to say, "Yes, that would be just fine for me if you went and sat back in the back." Everybody would be more comfortable that way. So I did, and went back there, and I started getting my little screen out, as we took off, and, looking at my selection of movies I thought, yeah, I could probably see at least two movies on this flight. And the flight attendant comes by and she goes, "Would you like something to drink?" And I'm thinking, because I had some cheese and fruit and cheese platters or whatever. And I'm thinking, yeah, some red wine would really be nice with this. And so she comes and gives me this glass of red wine, and I take one sip. And as soon as I did, I went, I'm not allowed to have wine because even though I'm not in the cockpit, I am still not allowed to imbibe alcohol, I'm still considered part of that crew.
That's
so I don't know if the rules are the same for your airline, Nick, but even though I'm not actually in the cockpit anymore, and I'm likely never going to return to that cockpit during this flight, and I'm in civilian clothing and the whole bit, but technically I was not allowed to have any alcohol. And so I had one sip before I realized it. And I kind of looked around, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to be fired for accidentally breaking one of these rules. But anyway.
It's actually an FAR.
Is it?
Yeah, because you're actually acting as part of a crew member. And so you by FARs, you're not supposed to have any.
Well, that's the case. I'm going to cut all this out of the
show. Yeah, right. This person you were talking about, Jeff, what's his name?
That was all hypothetical.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm thinking, you know what I meant to say is that I was about to take a sip.
Yeah.
And right before, it was like the glass was on my lower lip, and before the liquid actually came out, I realized, oh, wow, that was a close one. I almost had a sip of alcohol.
Absolutely.
I like seeing you sweat. I don't know if it's an FAR or not.
All right, that's it. Danny, you're fired.
Yeah.
You're fired.
I would surmise it's probably something because you're part of the crew. But I don't know.
I was not acting as a crew member, but I know technically, at least as far as Acme is concerned, that is a regulation.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it was purely, I'm being completely honest and upfront. I just never intended to break that rule, and as soon as I almost took a sip, I went, "Wow, I could have lost my job over that."
Well, Armando said it properly. It's Neff Gielsen.
Neff Gielsen.
That's the guy that had the wine.
This was like I don't know, probably about 40, 50 years ago, I think. If you want to look it up.
Doesn't Neff Gielsen fly the Dad Mog?
Damog.
Dad Mog.
The Dad Mog.
The Dad Mog 09er.
Actually, to be honest with you, tell you a little secret. I'm not really an airline pilot. I've made all this stuff up.
Wow.
Yeah, you're
wow.
pretty good. Yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah. I've picked up a little stuff here and there, listening to other podcasts.
Mainly watching that movie. What was the one?
Airplane. That's it.
No. I was thinking about the one where the guy poses as an airline pilot.
Oh yeah. Catch me if you can.
There you go.
All right. Well, you know what? We knocked out a lot of feedback here. We did. I did save some of the feedback that I was going to play for this episode, mainly because it involves medical issues, and we were hoping that Steph would be with us by now to answer those questions. But sadly, she's not going to make it again this week. So, Steph, pretty much it's your show next week. You're going to answer all the feedback. But anyway,
I might take a week off then.
Yeah, we all
definitely off next week.
The Jeff and Steph show.
There you go. Okay, well, thanks everyone for listening to the show, downloading it from iTunes or whatever podcast client that you use, listening to it on the website. Again, we do have this wonderful website, airlinepilotguy.com, where you can find out information about the show, the crew, the community, and the coffee fund, merchandise. You can watch the show live. You can listen to the show. What else can you do there? So much more, I'm sure. Again, airlinepilotguy.com. Also, don't forget, if you have one of these little devices we call cell phones, smartphones, whatever, or tablets, there's an app that you can get for your phone by heading to the iOS App Store if you have an Apple product, or if you have an Android product, head over to the Google Play Store, and there you can download the Airline Pilot Guy app free of charge, no advertising, and you can do a lot of stuff there as well. And social media. Captain Nick, you want to cover that?
Yeah, you can find us on Facebook. Look for the Airline Pilot Guy on Facebook, and you want to join us on Twitter, then just tweet at APG Crew.
All right, and Slack. Hillel's here to tell us about that.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan meetups and events. To get into the Slack team, please send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @HI11E1, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel at HI11E1, and see you in Slack.
See you in Slack. Thank you, Hillel. And until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great time. Bye-bye.
Talons, Douglas. And then, if you're listening to the audio right now, during all that closing stuff, you would have been listening to this. But I'm not brave enough to play this live because you have to make sure that you end everything in 2 minutes and 9 seconds. So that's why I always put it in post. And it perfectly matches up every single darn time. But this is the matching outro to go with the new intro, which I like. I love that. I'm going to have to get that changed to Jeff's pet peeves, not just pet peeve.
Pet pee, yeah, it just sounds like you've got a particularly nice way of peeing. So,
well, I do
this
actually.
is my pet way of peeing. My pet.
I guess you don't use that term in the UK. Pet peeves.
Yes, we do. It's just
okay.
It doesn't quite the V in peeve doesn't quite come across. It took me. It's better when you played it in the show because it's obvious that it's a peeve.
Okay. Oh yeah, because it has context.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Nice beaver.
Thank you. We just got it stuck.
Family show. It's a family show.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what she said.
Love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy.
Yay.
Wow. That's awesome. Awesome.
You hear the audience applauding for us? Nice. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jeff, I think you should get up and take a bow.
That's okay. Let's see. Hamish to Haggis. We will play your feedback in the next episode because it deals with the medical certificate with type 1 diabetes. And again, that's Robert. Thank you, Robert, for sending that in. And Steph will be here to have an intelligent response, I'm sure. Definitely not from us.
The only one on the show that can.
I know.
Yes.
Ivor, again, thank you for being with us for the live show. And again, we're going to push your feedback to the next show because, again, it involves Miss Steph, who is absent without leave. Is that right? AWOL?
Yeah.
Absent without leave? Okay.
That's exactly right.
And Dr. Bo Abrahamson, if you're here with us today, I don't know, he doesn't normally watch the show live, but he sent in an audio question regarding medical kits. So you can see it's all kind of medical flying kind of related, and we're going to push that to the next show. So there we go. Steph, what do you have to say for yourself?
I think she's a triple miffed.
I know she's not very happy with herself. She did one of those faces.
Yeah. Well, we understand.
Yeah, we do. Totally understand.
Yeah, if we're all perfect, which we're not, then we wouldn't make mistakes like that.
You're not perfect, Dana? You sure you're not on there?
I am far. It's just in Boston. I'm perfect.
I'm perfectly imperfect.
I am as imperfect as perfect comes. Imperfect comes.
There you go.
All right. Let's see. So when is your pickup? Potentially in a couple hours?
5:45 call, 6:45 pickup. I'm guessing the airplane is a damn bin liner.
no.
Yeah, I know. What have I done to deserve that? For heaven's sake!
Is First Officer Mike part of the crew?
Hope not. But no, he doesn't seem to know when he's bloody flying. He's either flying this one home or some airplane tomorrow.
Why wouldn't he know that by now?
I don't think he's the sharpest tack in the box, but yeah. So well, hopefully his captain will keep a close eye on him so that he doesn't get lost or whatever happens.
By the way, we should mention that it was just published yesterday. The latest Airplane Geeks show highlights and what's the word I'm looking for? Their guest Hope, the guest Hope. I don't know why I wanted to say guest help. Their guest host was First Officer Mike, who is with us here in the chat room, and did a very nice job. And I got a chance to finally hear his accent, which sounds to me, the untrained American ear, almost like a Scottish accent. Is that possible?
It could be absolutely anything. Quite honestly, it's not that far north. It's not quite that bad, but Scottish accent's quite nice. Now this is a sort of garish, sort of jumped up.
So what kind of an accent is it again?
Well, we're going to call it
Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Yorkshire pudding.
Well, that's what they claim that's theirs. Yeah.
Oh boy, that sounds like a probably not as big of a deal as the Yorkshire thing, but in our country, we have something. It's basically a hunting stew called Brunswick stew, and the people in South Carolina and North Carolina, I think those are the two big ones, are always fighting over which Brunswick is the Brunswick stew. There's a Brunswick, North Carolina, and a Brunswick, South Carolina.
There you go.
So what do you think, Steph? I'm sure she's going to say North Carolina. Since actually, she lives in South Carolina and works in North Carolina, so she kind of straddles the fence on that. She probably has an idea of which one is the actual real Brunswick stew. But regardless, you ever had Brunswick stew, Dana?
All the time.
It's good stuff, man. Yeah.
I actually made it for barbecue. Not barbecue competition, but for. Pardon me, I'm just going to be justice. The lights flicked off and on, and then it reset the heat and air conditioning system.
Oh yeah, you kind of like Skyped a little bit, but we didn't lose you.
No, I had to run over to the heating and air conditioning in the room because I had a power flash a little while ago, and it reset it and put it at like 76 degrees in here. So the temperature was very warm, so I had to run away. Anyways, Brunswick stew I've made several times for the cook-off that you used to be over there at Stone Mountain.
Oh, okay.
And it's Brunswick stew.
What's Stone Mountain got to do with stew?
That's the mountain where Steph goes and drinks way, way too much and becomes stoned. Oh, not stoned. Stoned.
I think that's smoking too much, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Way too much.
It's a big outcropping of granite.
Oh, I've been there. But I just want to try to work out how Brunswick stew was associated with a big lump of granite.
Stone Mountain Park is where they used to have the annual chili cook-off. There was 300 plus teams that would compete for the chili cook-off, and of course in that they had the chili itself. Then they would have cornbread as an entry, then Brunswick stew as an entry. So I was part of a team that I would do we'd buy 3 or 4 different entries, and we'd each one of us would do a chili, and then I would end up doing the Brunswick stew every year. So I've made it many times.
Have you ever made it the traditional hunting way with like squirrel and that kind of stuff in it?
Well, I am from the Northeast, so roadkill doesn't tend to make it into the menu very much. So no, I've never made it with
people taking their little 22s and shooting squirrels. Come on,
I can't kill anything, let alone a squirrel.
Well, I didn't say I did, but I've had squirrel before, and guess what? It tastes like
chicken.
Tastes like chicken. Just like alligator and frog and just about everything else. They all taste pretty much the same. At least to me, they do. It could be New Brunswick stew. I would imagine that would be a little bit different.
Absolutely.
Steph, yeah. I think it's my... I think I'm really having trouble with vocabulary today. I think that it's my contention. That's the name, the word I was looking for. That you probably never have had proper Brunswick stew, because there are different styles of it, and there is definitely a certain style that I prefer over the others. I've had Brunswick stew that you kind of go, it's okay. I guess there's nutrition in here or something.
Well, in what I was going to say is, if you think about Brunswick stew and it's proper, it's really a vinegar-based type of sauce. So that's really associated with the Carolinas as far as barbecue goes. So that's, I think, where it probably originated from.
Maybe if you have too much vinegar in there, it gets a little too tangy or whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a place on the other side of town that I always get my Brunswick stew from. Is so good, so good. Getting hungry just thinking about it. I'm gonna have to try yours though sometime, Dana.
Anytime.
So the actress to the bishop, Mike. You know that annoying person, Mike. I think we should ban him from the chat room. Did you hear what he did at the beginning of the show? He phoned me because he eventually. I'm assuming he phoned people with the room number 727 737 747.
I bet
757 767 777 787 797, and eventually found me.
Which one of those is yours?
It was 727. He obviously wasn't
that's
smart
a great
enough to start with. Yeah, the three-holer.
You were embarrassed to even mention that you were in that room. That's an awesome.
No, well, I knew he'd go and do something stupid.
I had not taken that into consideration. I didn't think of that.
Exactly. So there you go.
So is that who you were talking to earlier in the show? Then
on the phone, yeah, exactly right.
Phone, yeah, that was hysterical. I saw you.
It was a bit pointless because his accent is so broad that I hadn't a clue what he was saying anyway. Couldn't understand him.
I love his accent, but there were times on the show, on the Airplane Geek show, I'm going, what the hell did he just say?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it'd be nice if he spoke English, but there you go. I mean, these foreigners, I don't think we should let him in the country, personally.
These foreigners.
He'd probably tell us that in the Summer Olympics, Yorkshire as a county got more medals than most other countries put together. They did actually have a huge medal, a number of medals they won, mainly because you can't afford cars up there. They steal them. Since they perhaps don't want to steal a car, they ride bicycles. So there are an awful lot of bike riders in Yorkshire. And the other thing they do is they can't afford the bus prices, so they run a lot. So there's a lot of runners in Yorkshire. So that's what that's all about.
That's the definition of an underhanded comment. Well done. Well done.
I'm sure he'll get his own back.
Where's Liz? She didn't join us.
Oh yeah,
she's been in and out.
Well, Liz, if she knows where the show, she knows where the show notes are. Just click on it, Liz.
Yeah, you don't need permission.
You want to join the after show? You're more than welcome to.
Let me. I've just realised that. Yes, that's good. That's handy. There. That's perfect.
Well, you guys carry on with the after show. I'm gonna go have a private show for a moment. I'll be right back.
Okay.
There you go. That'll stop him getting his own back.
You guys carry on with the after show. I'm gonna go have a private show for a moment. I'll be right back.
Now we're getting your audio there, Liz.
You got me?
There you go.
Yeah, but we're hearing the hangout through your speaker. I mean, through your microphone.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Audio there, Liz.
Yeah, just a sec. Got it. You got me?
Yeah, but
Okay.
There you go. Hi, Liz.
Got it. Hi, guys.
Good job with the alphanumerics.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
getting
very
the
good.
I'm getting the hang of the flow of things. I think Jeff's been very patient, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, I mean, anything that helps me, even in the tiniest bit, is great. So, you've been a great help. So, thank you.
There she is. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Dana.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as always.
He's hard to miss.
Wow.
I know. All the gloves come off at the end of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Don't let me catch you sleeping. I might shave that beard off on you again.
Well, I've timed out Mike, so I'm just feeling on a roll right now.
Well, I think that having deleted all of First Officer Mike's messages and banning him for 5 minutes is going to lead to somebody at your door.
That's pretty quick. Anyway, hopefully these hotel doors are nice and strong. So
we're going to find out, I think.
don't give him any ideas, Jeff. Come on. Got enough trouble as it is.
Oi.
Oh, man.
What did I do with? I guess I closed it out. Oops.
What'd you close out?
The
Chat?
chat room.
Were you able to partake in the chat this time?
Yeah, I was in it the whole day, whole time.
Okay. Well, a couple times you weren't able to do anything in the chat window.
Well, it's still kind of weird the way it lays in my window on my computer, but I can, if I scroll down on it, I can get to the bottom where I can actually enter
okay.
my entries. So
are you popping it out? That's what I think most of us do.
Yeah, I pop it out.
Okay, and then you
no
can.
pun intended.
And then you can move it
privately, usually, but
you can pop it out and then move it around. And
you leave your spots alone.
But you can put the window in a better location on your screen if you'd like.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been doing.
Okay, so you're basically telling us user error then on the reason why you couldn't use it in the past. Yes.
No.
Oh,
if
okay.
you saw
so you're basically telling us user error then on the reason why.
Did you hear that?
Yes. Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Bring it up to the microphone so we can hear.
Is that you, Mike? Hang on a minute. You can talk on the show. I'm going to put you on the microphone. Well, say something, you fool. You have to speak up. We can hardly hear you.
Other end of the phone, Nick.
Very good. Okay, you were live on the show. Well done.
All we heard was.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, he hasn't got a very big voice for a Yorkshireman, has he? No, it was the right end. He doesn't know say very enough.
He doesn't know how to work a telephone.
No, he doesn't know. By the way, I'm looking at this stupid bin liner that I'm supposed to fly home in. It hasn't even got to Newfoundland yet.
Oh boy.
Ugh. Stupid.
Must have a little bit of a wind on the nose, which means it'll be fast going home.
Boeing pilots. What can you say?
Ah,
it's got to get here first, Dana.
True.
It's got a long way to go on two engines, two dodgy engines. I know.
Yeah, at that Pratt Whitney's, right?
Yeah.
No. Oh, Trent. I'm sorry.
Bin liner engines.
Yes.
So
which reminds me, I'm going to have to put up with Pratt and Prattney engines on the new Airbuses we've got. The new old Airbuses. Pratt and Prattney. Yeah. You know what a Pratt is in English?
No.
Oh, well, he's a bit of an idiot in English, in our English.
In the Queen's English.
Well, I don't say I speak the Queen's English. Otherwise, I speak up here.
Oh, yeah, it sounds like the Queen's English to me. So when the Queen bowls, does she, like in a bowling alley, does she use the Queen's English? So you can, like,
is that
never mind.
is that some kind of bias? English
English
bias.
is like how you kind of contort your body to kind of try to make the ball kind of go where you want it to go. You kind of
Yeah, I don't think that's one of her prime activities. I've never seen a picture of her bowling.
I'm
Well, but I was thinking
probably
if she was bowling, she'd probably saying more things in French, like swearing in French. Watch your French woman.
Oh, but speaking of that, did you see that piece of feedback that was sent in a while ago, Nick? That's something about strange English sports.
Well, yes. Go ahead. We roll cheeses downhill.
No, it's like, okay, hang on.
What? You roll cheeses downhill?
Yeah, there's a sport where a whole village full of young men chase big rounds of cheese, and they're thrown down this incredibly steep hill, and there's usually several broken legs and arms, and the odd person.
Isn't your wife carrying too?
Oh yeah. I when I was a youngster, I was forced by the Royal Air Force to take part in the Knaresborough bed race, for heaven's sake, which was carrying a bed around with a young lady partially clad in it, all around Knaresborough. And I'm not kidding. Knaresborough is another idiot town in Yorkshire, which is more uphills and down dales in it than you can shake a stick at. I mean, I had to do my flying training in Yorkshire. But the only good thing about it is they do make a decent beer. But yeah, that was tough. That was Knaresborough bed. I just hated that.
Okay, I'm gonna
wow.
See if I can upload this here.
This actually is pretty funny.
Let me see.
Nice
if I can
picture this time you've got there, Liz. You're not at all fuzzy. You were very fuzzy last time I saw you.
Oh, well, very good. I'm glad I'm clarified now.
You are.
All right, let me share my screen and come on.
Mike's suggesting I'll end up in the Boeing toilet on the way home. It's probably more comfortable than the seats.
What the heck? Here we go. Share.
Is that your logbook behind you?
I don't have a logbook.
It says right behind your shoulder.
Can you see this?
I see somebody that looks like
yeah, except when Dana talks, because he gets priority.
Can't hear it though.
Oh. Well, that's kind of the funny part of it is that they're talking like they're talking like this. We've not seen much of that, Ted. There it goes.
It's very funny, actually.
Is this any kind of real sport?
Not that I'm aware of. I do believe
they're
that's
making up.
Yeah, probably something like you were getting Monty Python, but
Yeah, and they're talking gibberish too, but it's quite funny.
Yeah, so you got to watch the whole thing. And then go to this board. He's got to move his yellows a bit. Changing the pattern. And a left jolly marker for the white team. Okay, well, anyway. That's
it's the idiot in the referee's uniform, the umpire's uniform. That's great.
It looks like something Monty Python would, I don't know, maybe that is Monty Python.
Well, they did have a competition for the upper class twit of the year. I thought that was very good.
Upper class twit of the year.
Yeah.
Oh man! Wow. Oh, that by the way, Twit is a network. This Week in Technology.
Oh yes, I listened to that.
And the guy that did the theme for the show also did a theme for the Twit show. I'm a Twit, I think is the name of it. I'm wondering how I could share that. I don't know. Oh, I know how. All right, you guys carry on while I look for that. Okay, you're not carrying on at all.
Where's your next trip, Dana? Where you got something nice?
Yeah, actually, I tried to see if James is available, but I've got a long Cleveland overnight, so maybe I'll just text him directly. And let me take a look at this. I'm starting to wind down on all my good trips here. I end up Cleveland, Detroit, and Denver. One leg on day one, one leg on last day. So really nice.
You got to watch out for those one-legged trips.
Yep, one-legged trips makes it fun.
That's what they say.
One-legged captains too.
Ah, there you go. Well, you need a no-legged captain then, like Douglas Bader.
No, spineless is better.
Ah, ha, 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 ha.
Going down another rat hole. I didn't mean to. Seems like we've lost control, but that's the way it goes. Another day with Leo. And then again, just watch your back. Or Johnny C. Get us back on track. And if I feel a bit spunky, I'm just another jumping monkey. I know everything to do with it. I'm on the inside, yeah, I'm a twin. And if I miss one, I have a fit, yeah, I'm a twin, I'm a twin. So what's the pick of the week? Just let me know, just let this geek peek into the future. Make an exception for this user.
Are you suggesting we're twits?
I'm a twit.
Ah.
I just like his music. Anyway,
I'm a little worried about you now.
Are you?
Yes.
Just now? Haven't you always been?
Yeah, well.
Okay.
There is that.
I'm glad that somebody's out there worrying about me.
Of course.
All right.
Don't worry about you, Jeff.
I know. Let's see here. What else do we need?
Oh God, I need a shower.
Yeah, we were gonna tell you, but we thought we'd wait till the show was over.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's time.
Dana needs a shower.
Who needs a shower?
Dana.
I do.
Oh, why? What happened? Did you have an accident?
No, I didn't take a shower today yet. I haven't had to go out of the room. So.
Oh, okay. Well, before you go out and present yourself in public, I think it's time for you to kind of wash up a bit.
Yeah. Clean things
Well, hey,
up.
before you go, you were mentioning, was it next week you were talking about your schedule?
Yeah, Nick was asking what my schedule looks like.
Okay, and what day looks good for you?
Thursday looks okay. I get back at 11 in the morning, so anytime after about probably 12:31 would work. Although we do have dinner plans Thursday night, so it'd have to be done by 6:30.
Okay, Thursday would work for me. I get home at I'll be home a little after noon.
Not good for me. I'm heading back out here on the same trip, up slightly different hotel. But
wait a minute, I'm looking at the wrong week. Thursday, I'm home all day. Okay, so you're not good on Thursday.
No, I'm flying out. I'm good on Friday because if we did it similar time on Friday, I'd be, sitting there over in the Sheraton Harbor View as opposed to the New Yorker, and that's got reasonable internet over there, I think.
Okay.
I'm off.
You're off on Friday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Steph, I don't know, is she still on the show or no?
Well, occasionally, I think makes guest visits.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to.
She's looks like if her appointment's at 4:00, she's probably.
Yeah, she just left for the dentist.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll have to see what is good for her as well next week.
I'm good Tuesday afternoon. I'm good Wednesday afternoon. I'm good Monday afternoon. So really any day.
I'm out of it. I've got simulators Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
And they don't finish till Wednesday because they're like real late at night, early morning.
Okay. So you're out basically the first part of the week.
Yeah. And then I don't really get a day off. I then go straight into my Newark on Thursday. And it's just my rest day before I fly home Friday. We can do it. It'll be a similar checkout time to probably a little bit later than this one. So I get about a 7 o'clock call, I think.
All right. So Friday afternoon, maybe?
Yeah. So Friday afternoon would be perfect.
Okay. We could always do a like a mid to late afternoon start, and then maybe Steph would be home by then.
PTUK conflict there.
Oh, they're always doing well. They don't always do it on Friday. Are they doing it this?
They're doing it tomorrow at 2:00 our time, but
Okay.
it just doesn't matter. But I just thought that's usually.
Yeah.
Or the weekend.
What's
Anybody?
that? I don't. Is that a show?
Yeah,
Podcast?
something like that.
Well, I know they take $5 from me every time they do one. I don't know how they got.
Me too.
Well, you know what? If you'd stop paying them, they'd stop doing that stupid
Oh,
shit.
well, if only I thought of that. I'm going to try and find out how they're stealing it from my account now. Oh, by the way, Dana, I've got something to show you.
Oh my! I'm gonna close my eyes here. I'm worried.
Yeah, we are on the air still. Somebody remind
Yes.
him.
Yeah.
Put your
Oh,
pants
too
back
late
on.
now.
New hat.
Let's see.
Oh, yay!
All right. Now, what I want to know is how come you get a green one and I get a red one? What's that all
Well,
about?
no, you have to dip your head down or something. I can't see what it is we're
He's too
looking
damn
at.
tall.
Boston.
Oh,
It's a Boston Red Sox hat.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Okay.
awesome. Awesome,
Okay.
Nick.
Yeah,
Thank
let's
you.
It's
You
one of
made
my
my whole
oldest.
day. I know you love me now.
I would go outside your hotel right now and up and down the streets.
You might not make the flight home. Might get mugged.
Although I wear my New York Yankees over here hat, and people keep shouting strange things at me in the street and wanting to high five me as I walk along, and I don't know what the hell they're talking about. What are they saying? A bit like those Yorkshiremen. I can't understand their accent.
Oh my, that's awesome.
So how come yours is green then?
Because mine's for St. Patty's. See,
Oh, okay.
in
Gotcha.
honor of St. Patrick's Day.
You know they're Irish. You're American.
Right. Well, but
All right, I didn't know.
Boston has a huge contingent of Irish.
They're not Irish. They're Americans.
They're Irish.
true.
They're
Irish
they're Americans.
Irish Americans.
Wait, hold on.
Wait, they're just Americans.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I
Wait,
agree.
so
We're
tell
all
me about
Americans.
African Americans.
No, they're Americans too.
They're Americans
just
too.
Americans.
Everybody's an
I
American.
call myself a
I'm a
Scandinavian
Jewish.
American.
I'm a Russian American.
Yeah.
Well, you
You're an
move
American.
around. You don't move around very fast for a Russian American.
Yeah, I can move pretty fast. Don't you worry. You've seen me move fast when I'm cooking.
Yes, I have, and you better keep out of your way because you're like a tiger tank.
No, I'm like a bull in a china shop.
Well, I don't know about bull in the china shop because you're a pretty neat chef. I thought I was very impressed. You didn't cut any fingers off, and it all seemed to work, and nothing got dropped.
And we didn't get very sick after we ate
No,
your stuff.
No, not very at all. Yeah, not very.
No, that was good food. I enjoyed that.
Hey, Jeff, you need to hide your pipe a little better.
My pipe?
Your pipe.
The ceiling.
Oh, yeah. You like my big pipe, huh?
I like your big pipe. It's nice and shiny and long. Even has a funny bend to at the end of it.
Well, we're all different.
Yeah.
Oh, Liz is going, what was I thinking when I joined this
Not at all. I just
motley crew? Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, HR is not here, so she's not keeping us in
No,
the control.
HR is not monitoring at this moment.
No, she's having her teeth drilled.
Yeah.
That'll teach her.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we stop the broadcast? So thank you, everyone, whoever is left in the chat room. Thank you for hanging out with us again
Bye.
today. And we'll see you again next week sometime.
Barbara's still there. Mike's still there.
Yeah. Take
Neil's
care.
still there.
Mike, if you're thinking of flying me home tonight, you better go get some damn rest. Go on. Stop messing about.
All right. See ya. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Adios.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.